#1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code FOREVER. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Syndicate. I'm Dan Viens from Seahawks Forever, Brandon Kane from the Hawks Nest, Bryce Coots from the Hawks Eye. We are in Mobile, Alabama, and we are going to talk about some Senior Bowl near the end of the show. The game today, actually, we'll give you our thoughts on some of the standouts of the week and some early Seahawk fits that we think we like. Here's kind of the format tonight, you guys. Thank you all for being here. We got a lot to talk about. First of all, we're going to address the elephant in the room that came out about 24 hours ago. This report from Seth Wickersham and Brady Henderson that the Seahawks are going to be for sale. And then we're going to talk about what some of you think of that and how some of you think it's just not going to happen. And we'll banter about that a little bit. We'll take an early look at the Patriots, get these guys' thoughts in particular on just what they think of the matchup itself, like schematically, the X's and O's, talk about how they match up on the field. The latest on Clint Kubiak, who we know today was actually meeting with teams. And then we'll take a look at the Senior Bowl and then open it up for your questions, comments, and takes. First of all, guys, let's touch on this before we kind of wrap it back around. We've been here all week for the Senior Bowl. Today was the game. It was your first time in Mobile, the two of you. The experience overall so far, Brandon, what do you think?
I'm definitely glad I did it. It's a great experience and definitely something, if you cover football, you should be out here at some point or other to take a look at and take it in. It gives you a look of things in a way that you don't normally get, and it's good to see these guys up close and personal, be right down there on the field to see what they're doing, and enjoyed a lot. I think there's a lot of value within it. It was a fun experience.
Bryce, you're the coach, the coaching eye. What was it like for you watching practice and the game today?
I really enjoyed it, honestly, guys. It was a cool experience, something you definitely, if you're a content creator, coach, that if you get the opportunity, you definitely want to come down here. You want to experience this. But there's also things about it depending on the class you're getting too, right? Like the talent that we were looking at some points. Last year's group, a little bit more talent of a draft class, might have a few more guys that stand out. This year, there were a few guys, I think, that maybe have been flying under the radar that we might have found that are guys that might scoot up this draft board. But overall, I'd say the experience was pretty good, and it's a cool little town, too.
All right, we got a lot to talk about. Last night, breaking news, right as the Seahawks are preparing to play in the Super Bowl, Seth Wickersham, of course, from ESPN, along with Brady Henderson, who is the Seahawks lead beat reporter for ESPN. He's also their pool reporter, so he's the one that gathers information, gets it out to the national guys at times. They came out with a co-authored story yesterday stating that the Seahawks will be placed on the market for sale after the Super Bowl. Now, that shouldn't come as a huge surprise because we have known ever since Paul Allen passed away that eventually it would be required that the trust sell the team and that the proceeds of that sale go towards his charitable organizations. The thought was, when he first passed away, that it wouldn't take that much time, that Jody Allen didn't like football. She loved basketball. She loved being involved with the Portland Trailblazers, wasn't a big football fan. But over the years, she has really developed an affinity for the day-to-day operations of the team and working with John Schneider and then watching this thing be built up under Mike McDonald. Well, now it sounds like the time has come, but man, it has created a ton of backlash online, a firestorm of different opinions. Of course, the organization came out shortly after that with their own one-paragraph rebuttal to the story, which is very carefully crafted and worded. Some fans want to believe that. They want to reject the story. They don't want the team to be sold. Why do you think this is such an emotional hot button for fans?
Well, I think that people are definitely got some PTSD when it comes to the Sonics, and that I think that what hovers over the ownership situation is the threat and possibility that the team could eventually be moved, and that I think that this is really pushing everything along, and people don't like change when things are going really well. So it's a combination of two different matters running into it. I think that when it comes to the Kubiak news out there or this ownership news, I do see a lot of Seahawks fans get really instantaneously emotional to trying to deny it rather than really giving it a lot of thought and turning it over in their head as to whether there is validity to this. Now, we know the Kraft, the Patriots owner probably leaked this information out. But with that said, it doesn't mean that it's inaccurate. And two things can be true at one time here, and being that he was the leaker and it is a little bit accurate. Now, we can get into all the depths of what this means and why the timing of this comes about now. But I think that Seahawks fans would be smart to kind of wrap their head around the fact that this team is due to be sold. She doesn't have a timeline to sell it, but the trust tells her she must sell it. Now, we've all said, well, she can decide on her own timeline, but I don't think that the trust inherently was set up for this to be 2045 when this clicked in.
Yeah, no, and I think the thing, too, you got to look at is the value of this team is never going to be higher, potentially, right? We're talking about a team right now that's $7 to $8 billion is roughly what they figure the sale will be, but you're talking about a team that's got a young top head coach, one of the top GMs in football. It's basically a situation where if you are a new owner or you're going to sell this, you are setting that new owner up for success. You're going to a great fan base, a stadium that is fully paid off. You don't have a lot of extra things you'll have to do. You don't have to rebuild a stadium. You don't have to do a lot of things. It's basically come in, spend your money, and watch this investment grow for you as an owner. I also tend to look at this going the time of the news, and I totally agree that the Patriots, I think, did leak this, or Kraft did leak this to Seth, because there's that whole relationship he has within that Patriots organization for years, covering the dynasty and all those things. I tend to believe that there's probably maybe one or two buyers that have really been pushing this envelope for a while. I think one of them all of us know here, Jeff Bezos, has really been kind of a guy that wants to get into the NFL ownership game. He's been pushing for it, tried to be a part of that Washington Commanders group. He may have walked in and basically said, hey, look, I will overpay to get this. And Jody probably looks at it to a point, like you said, Brandon, the trust does say she has to sell the team. And I don't think there's a point of, I want to hold on to this till 2045 or 2050. She wants to get as much value as she can when she does sell it. I understand the nervousness from Seahawks fans, but I think in a situation like this, where the Seahawks organization was at that time to where they are now, are very different in relation to the ability to sell that team and relocate it.
Yeah, and I'll say two more things about it. And you touched on this. I think it's a really important point that both things can be true, right? That the report was that the team will be for sale sometime shortly after the Super Bowl. And then the organization, the Allen Foundation, came out and said the team is not for sale, but will be at some point in the future. We're focused on the Super Bowl right now. It's not for sale today, but it's going to be, and that's the reporting. And for people who just want to reject this ESPN story as fake news because everyone's skeptical of any news source now, Seth Wickersham has a long history of in-depth investigative behind-the-scenes reporting and some sensitive topics at times, and he usually gets a bunch of this blowback. Remember the story in 2016, 2017 about how Pete Carroll was giving special favoritism and special treatment to Russell Wilson, and that was alienating some of the defensive guys. That was all roundly rejected by Seahawks fans. He was called a hack and fake news. That all came out within years later. We found out that was all incredibly accurate and very, very true. He's a very, very well-established, respectable reporter. And Brady Henderson is one of the most professional guys, especially for a young guy, that I've ever met in the business. They're not just throwing this out there for clicks, or somebody tried to tell me last night, just to make a name for themselves. Making a name for yourself as a reporter is getting things right. And I think time will bear out that we're going to look back on this and go, oh yeah, these pieces were in place, these parts were moving, and it's leading to something that, we've been asking the question for years, and every time we ask Greg Bell or one of the guys covering the team, they say, well, we just don't know. There was no indication. It's the first time we've gotten real clear indication that there's a timeline coming up. So buckle up. That team, now, whoever buys the team is probably going to buy a team with a different offensive coordinator than they currently have. We know that Clint Kubiak was scheduled to meet in person in Seattle today with the Arizona Cardinals and the Las Vegas Raiders before the team heads out to Santa Clara tomorrow. Something kind of interesting and fun and funny sort of happened last night where my old place of work and my best friend in the whole wide world, who still works there as a captain, texted me last night and let me know that Mark Davis and Clint Kubiak were having dinner there last evening. So I tweeted that, and I've experienced this before in the past. When Ryan Grubb was being hired, when there was early indications that Mike McDonald was the guy, there's some other indications. people just want to reject anything that doesn't align with what they want to believe or what their wishful thinking, what they hope happens. And so I took a lot of crap online for this. Not everybody disagreed. I'd say it was about 50-50. My tweet was actually used on a Raiders chat sports show today. They handled it very respectfully. Shout out to you guys. I don't make things up. I don't lie about things. I don't report things that often because I really don't have inside connections. But I have some, and when I do get information that I feel good about, I'm going to pass it along. I'm not going to pass it along for clicks or just to make waves or whatever. So all that means is that in addition to the formal interview that we expected to happen today, Mark Davis and a couple other members of the Raiders front office or ownership organization, nobody knows what those guys look like, so I don't have names for them. They had dinner last night. So they spent a little more time than just the interview today. It is beginning, when you start to connect the dots, and you read the tea leaves, everything is lining up that whatever hope, I know this is how I feel, and we've talked about it enough here, staying here in Mobile over the last couple of days. I think we're all on the same page that a couple of days ago we might have had some hope that Clint, maybe cooler heads would prevail and he'd decide to stay in Seattle for another year and wait for another opportunity. Sure seems like he's going to be the Raiders' next head coach.
Yeah, he's having dinner with him last night, and then they're meeting with him again. It just means all but, I think, a certainty at this point. You're not getting this far down the line. You're not separating yourself from Super Bowl week just because you're kind of sort of interested in maybe taking the job. It's something where you can be mad about this as you want, but this is what our job is to do to you. And I want to echo this with Dan, because I did see a lot of blowback with us on this. You guys should be celebrating this. This is what you should want from us to be able to bring you to this. If we do get some information piped in, and as he said, we rarely do, so these guys are probably more connected even than I am. But if we do get those bits of information, we can give you guys those nuggets. Those are nuggets. We're not trying to do something to where he's not going viral off that. It's just something to try to provide the value to you guys on this. So it is one you can mad about. You can turn it over and say, cool, why are you doing this? But it's the reality of this, that we called this from about myself a couple months out, when there's this many jobs, or a month out, when there's this many jobs, this many people available, he's doing this good a job. He's just hung 30-point burgers up in the playoffs. It's all but he's out the door at this point, folks.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing with it. And, again, it's one of those things where when we look at the jobs that are available, what occurred, and what's left between the Cardinals and the Raiders, for Clint, there's a lot of factors that make the Raiders appealing. John Spytek's a part of it. Tom Brady's a part of it in some respects, right? You get that veteran Hall of Fame level quarterback's opinion and such. I'm of the same thing. I think this is all just, we may not even hear anything because it's done behind closed doors. They can't actually announce anything till after Super Bowl is the rule of thumb by the NFL. So I think if you don't hear that, another coach is being named head coach of the Raiders between now and, say, Wednesday, then Clint Kubiak is coaching his last game with the Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl Sunday and will be gone the following Monday to sit at his press conference for the Vegas Raiders. And, again, this is another thing I'll say to this point. This is what happens when you have good teams, when you have good coaches, and you're building that type of culture. You will inevitably lose some of those coaches. And this is what we all talked about when we hired Mike McDonald. We're getting a great defensive coach, but what is the plan always going to be at offense? Because as you bring in innovative coaches at the offensive coordinator position, they are inevitably going to leave because teams are going to want those type of guys. It's what the NFL is trending towards, young, innovative offensive coaches. Now, on the flip side of that, me and Brandon and Dan, we've had discussions. I've had discussions with people that I know are connected, and one name kind of keeps coming up, which makes me and Brandon feel a little bit better about this situation, and that name is Arthur Smith.
Now, we mentioned that the other night on our show as a possibility because, first of all, just to backtrack a little bit and sort of set the stage, it is late in the process, and a bunch of the guys that we might have been excited about as candidates aren't available any longer. They have other, and just to clarify, I think there's a misconception out there, and same with me. When they were going through the whole Mike Kafka thing a couple of years ago, there was a lot of confusion about this. Whether or not you call plays as an offensive coordinator has absolutely zero bearing, the way the NFL rules are written, on whether or not you can block a coach from going somewhere. I had a conversation with someone today who said, just go get Clay Kubiak and just keep it rolling. Well, Kyle Shanahan has said clearly, without any hesitation, he will block any attempt to interview Clay Kubiak. It doesn't matter that he doesn't call plays. He's not available. It's considered a lateral move. Now, the Arthur Smith thing. We put this out a couple of nights ago. We talked about it. I tweeted it again yesterday that I did a little digging online. I couldn't find any confirmation that he has signed his contract with Ohio State yet. Only the last report that we had from Ian Rappaport was that he was finalizing a deal to become the next OC at Ohio State. Has not signed it. Even if he had, it's probably something you could easily buy him out of. It probably had an NFL clause in it. We know that Arthur Smith is someone that Mike Macdonald was intrigued by and would have wanted to talk to about the position when he was hired the first time. But Arthur Smith didn't want to wait, and he took the job in Pittsburgh. I got so much blowback last night when I tweeted about this with people just no, please no, God no, F no, this no. Arthur Smith is terrible. We think we know where that comes from. It didn't go well for him as a head coach in Atlanta. There's reasons for that. Most notably Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder are the two biggest reasons. But you go back to his Tennessee days, and I've got some numbers here, but I want to hear from you guys first. He was a very successful offensive coordinator in Tennessee, ran some really good offenses. It's what got him hired as a head coach. He was Clint Kubiak in 2020, just as Clint is now. What is it you like the most about Arthur Smith, and why do you think he's a fit?
Well, I've always operated from this is that the process is the most important. And what I want to do within the process is find somebody that has had a mighty amount of success, or at least some success somewhere. Even a Kubiak didn't have this, but I love Kubiak because you can see where he was at. He had had success as an OC in the NFL, that he's not a guy that you're starting out who's never called plays before, or you just think he's a real bright mind. As I've said over and over on this, you have a Super Bowl ready-made roster next year that is raring to go. That roster cannot be held out. That team cannot be held back by a lack of an OC who does not know what he's doing. And the thing you say about Arthur Smith is you can question maybe some of the ceiling to it, which I still would take some umbrage with, but you can't question whether or not he knows how to run an offense and a functional offense at that. This would be by far the most talented team that you have given him beyond anything he ever got with Tennessee, and he got some great results, which Dan's going to tell you about in a second out there with Tennessee. And you really have, I have a hard time with the folks that are taking so much judgment on Arthur Smith over the last two stops, being with Atlanta and with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Neither of those two offenses are good. They weren't good prior to him coming in there, and they haven't been good after he left. A coordinator is only going to be as good as the talent around him to a degree, and especially only as good as what quarterback he has to execute his offense. And look, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Fields, who's about to be cut by the New York Jets so they can save money, as they're already done with that. You know, these guys have proven over and over, along with Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota, that these are not functional NFL quarterbacks. So to hold him to account on that and to say, I'm going to judge you on the back of that, seems very harsh to me on this one. He's a high-quality candidate. He knows how to execute the outside wide zone scheme. He knows how to feature tight ends. He's going to build in the 12 personnel and be able to seamlessly pick that right back up. This is a guy that you can have, you hand it off like a baton, and you keep the race a-running.
Now, before we get to your thoughts on Arthur Smith, we did get a comment over here from Noob008. Says Arthur Smith just finalized it today. Just confirmed that a couple of hours ago. Ohio Smith did tweet this out. Welcome to Buckeye Nation, Arthur Smith. I highly doubt, to our point here, that any contract that he'd signed with Ohio State would prevent him or preclude him from getting out of it even tomorrow if he wanted to go get a job in the NFL.
We'll just look at Ryan Grubb.
Yeah.
Ryan Grubb had signed a contract to go and coach. Alabama was at their press conference being introduced as the offense coordinator. 3 days later, he's on a flight to Seattle.
Seahawks have played this playbook before.
Exactly.
Well, just the bottom line, college contracts do not apply to NFL. So it doesn't matter. He can sign with whatever he wants outside the NFL. It's not binding if he wants to come back to the NFL.
Yeah. But your thoughts on Arthur Smith and his fit? Because he's not straight. He hasn't coached with Kubiak. He hasn't coached with McVay. He doesn't come directly from that tree, as most people would expect us to turn to after Kubiak.
Yeah, but he does have a lot of overlapping consistencies within his offensive philosophy. A lot of 12, a lot of 13, a lot of 21 personnel, a lot of condensed splits from receivers. He loves the wide zone and duo. It's what he ran in Tennessee. It's what he ran with Bijan Robinson, which, again, is a direct overlap to what we already have in place. He loves the boot action. That was one thing that made Ryan Tannehill so successful in Tennessee was, hey, we're going to boot. We're going to run keepers. He loves to run over and crosser routes out of condensed splits. Again, another staple of this offense. He likes athletic O-lines. What do we have in Seattle? Another athletic O-line. There are so many things, again, to the point of Arthur Smith coming in, where you can look at it and you can go, yeah, that checks the box. That checks the box. To Brandon's point, you're literally handing a baton and saying, just don't trip. Don't trip on this. And by the way, you are getting a massive quarterback upgrade over Ryan Tannehill at the point in his career, over a Desmond Ridder, a Marcus Mariota, an Aaron Rodgers, a Russell Wilson. Like, the list goes on. He is getting an upgrade in that spot as well as receiver. We are now talking about having one of the top 5, top 3 NFL receivers on your roster. And oh, by the way, you have the best defense. So if you do have those struggles occasionally, week in and week out, you got a defense you can lean on. So it, to me, is almost like a no-brain decision from the Seahawks organization. If they don't like what they have in-house, they don't trust a Jake Peetz, a Justin Outen to take over this offense and run it to the point of, you can go back to a Super Bowl because we trust you. Go to Arthur Smith, be like, here's $6 million like Chip Kelly. Come here for the next 2 or 3 years, become our offensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's look, if you want to go with a guy who's experienced and has done it before, there just aren't any other options, really, unless you're trying to talk someone out of retirement. You know, maybe you can talk Doug Peterson out of retirement. I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's retired to Ferndale by now. But just one last thing on this, and you know, we don't want to spend an hour talking about Arthur Smith because they might just stay in house. And we've talked about that idea and how that might make some sense as far as trying to keep as much of the staff there and keeping as many of those guys from going with Kubiak as you can. But just to our point, forget about Atlanta, because there were some legitimate, tangible reasons there that kind of held him back from running the offense the way he really wanted to. But just going back and looking at 2019, 2020, when he was the OC with the Tennessee Titans. 2019, they averaged 25 points a game. They were middle of the league, but it was the highest scoring Titans offense in 16 years. It was a massive improvement from what their history was. Ryan Tannehill completed 70% of his passes that year, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks, got comeback player of the year. 2020, he goes 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 5 fourth quarter comebacks, and 6 game-winning drives. Not a bad year. Derrick Henry, 2019, 1,540 yards, 16 touchdowns, second-team All-Pro. 2020, 2,027 yards, 17 touchdowns. He was Offensive Player of the Year and first-team All-Pro. A.J. Brown, his first 2 years in the league, he's a rookie in 2019, 52 for 1,051 and 8. His second year, 70 catches for 1,075 and 11, made the Pro Bowl. Oh, by the way, their wide receiver 2 in Tennessee, Corey Davis. Could any of you have even answered that? 43 for 601 and 2, 65 for 985 and 5. So he was able to feed 2 different receivers in addition to having a 2,000-yard running back. Oh, by the way, he uses tight ends. How long have we screamed about that here in Seattle, that we don't get the most out of our tight end room? Here's an idea. Looking at him in Pittsburgh last year, when he didn't have the wide receivers, right? They trade George Pickens. They obviously trade for DK Metcalf, but they didn't have much else there. So he has to figure out another way to get production. The top 3 tight ends in Pittsburgh last year, Freiermuth, Washington, and Jonnu Smith, who goes everywhere Arthur Smith goes, but he won't come here. There's no room for him on the roster. Combined for 100. Well, first let me do the Seahawks. The top 3 tight ends for the Seahawks last year combined for 71 catches, 729 yards, 7 touchdowns. Top 3 tight ends in Pittsburgh last year with a broken down Aaron Rodgers, 110 catches for 1,072 yards and 7 touchdowns. And what else did he do to make up for the lack of productivity from his wideouts? His running backs. Hold on, I had to go to a different page here. His running backs. Last year, the Seahawks top 2 running backs combined for 51 catches for 426 yards. Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell last year in Pittsburgh combined for 113 receptions for 819 yards. And oh, by the way, in Tennessee over those 2 years, while all that was going on, Jonnu Smith averaged 42 catches and 440 yards a year also at the tight end position. So he's run balanced offenses, he's run the football, and he adapts to the personnel that he has on hand.
It's going to be a great signing. I'm going to applaud it just like I applauded Kubiak. And just like Kubiak looked great, and there were so many people that were up in arms in that one at the time, you guys are going to be satiated and happy with this one if it goes this direction.
And I know there's some comments and questions, starred comments. We'll get to those in a little bit. I know some of them will take us back to the ownership situation. We'll deal with those when we do our Q&A. But let's talk about the Super Bowl, you guys. We spent a little time last night going back in NFL Pro, looking at some old Patriots games from last year, looking at how they looked against the Ravens, who still run a semblance, although there were some stark differences we noticed in how Mike McDonald runs his defense, but some similar foundational pieces there. And we looked at a couple of other games, and I know you guys have dug in a little deeper. Give me some early thoughts on just the Patriots and what the Seahawks are looking at, how they match up?
Well, I got to say, I'm not finding myself with being struck with a ton of fear as I go through the tape of the Patriots, either on the offense or defensive side of the ball. They're missing difference makers across the board, first and foremost. They're protecting a lot of Drake May in the play calling and situating their play calling around making things easy for him. When college quarterbacks come out, a lot of shotgun, a lot of sub-empty sets, or you start empty and then you go to the running back in the backfield to try to give you some tells or help him out. And then there's a lot of just manufactured production, a lot of trick plays, game in and game out that are coming across the board. It's not him just basically doing a lot what you see Stafford doing, which is under center stuff, straight drop back action, play action. This is going to be a whole different animal, even though those guys have somewhat similar talents and what they bring, and maybe even his upside is eventually to be one of like a Stafford type once he kind of gets down the road a bit on this. But this is a team that's still young and still finding its way above all else. And I don't think that they're going to have the means on either side of the ball to really be able to attack you. Defensively, they can't get after you with the pass rush. I think there are holes in their rushing attack. I think their team speed on defense is at average, below average at best maybe, and that's not going to bode well on those outside zone runs, which really do test the speed of a defense out to the edges. I think there's a variety of different ways you're going to be able to get after this team. I think that we're better watching the tape now, as I thought off the rip before, just looking at the tape going, I think we're better in all three phases. I think we're maybe almost vastly better in all three phases of this game. And boy, it's just hard to find the pathway for the Patriots to win this.
Yeah, it really is, because when you look at what the Patriots do well on offense, we'll start on offense. What the Patriots do well on offense, what Josh McDaniels has done well with Drake May, is to Brandon's point. Everything for Drake May has to be one read, and then I'm using my legs. Like, it's basically an RPO offense without the RPO fake built into it. So when you watch when they were successful throwing the ball against Denver, throwing the ball versus Houston, well, it was when the safeties all of a sudden rotated and these teams went to a single high look to bring some pressure or whatever it was, and now that simplified things for Drake May. The minute teams got into a two high shell again, which Denver should have stayed in the AFC Championship game, Drake May gets slightly hesitant with where he's going with the ball. He hangs on to it for that extra second, half second, and then he's taking sacks. There were sacks he didn't need to take in that AFC Championship game, but he doesn't go through his progression simple and quickly. He hesitates on who he's reading and where to go with the ball. Same with their run game. Another thing that I noticed in that run game is they just don't have, unless Stevenson gets going and really forces you to collapse your box and play in tight, that allows Henderson to get outside. If it's truly a situation where Seattle's run defense all year has never really had to condense, they've never really had to come in with a bare front or any of those type of things. They can play in their 4-3 base, they can play in their 4-2-5 and have success. It makes it hard for an outside running back, scat back like Henderson to get going. And the other thing, their pass protection from their backs is not great. This is where you bring a Nicky Manwari, you bring some blitz packages off the edge. It's going to cause problems for Drake May because I don't think he's going to pick up where to go. Like, we watched Brett Coleman's video that he put out about, how Seattle's stunting to, Leonard Williams. I got a feeling Mike's done some self-scouting and going, okay, we're going to set them up. They're going to think we're stunting off where Big Cat's lining up, and we're going to do something different on the other end. And I also don't see difference makers, Brandon, in their receiving game. Who is getting separation from our corners? Who's going to create stress for those safeties? There's no need for Seattle to walk Kobe Bryant or Julian Love down into the box, really. You've got no problems there where I look at it and go, yeah, you know what? We need to stop the run. And then on top of that, yeah, I'm really worried about Stephon Diggs running by Reek Woolen or Devin Witherspoon. Like, I just don't see it. So having sat back and watched more of that film, I'm sitting there going, I don't know how they consistently move the ball. How do you prevent yourself from being in third and longs if you're the New England Patriots?
I want to get to this comment from Mark. I know I said I'd save some of these, but Mark got cut off the other night when our stream ended a little prematurely. He had one in, and it pertains to Drake May, which we were just talking about, so it's timely. Thanks for the super chat, Mark. Hey guys, last show I sent in a super chat, and the show abruptly ended. I asked, Drake May hasn't thrown at practice yet. Rest, or is this something else? Now we know that near the end of the game, in the AFC Championship game, he hurt his shoulder, and that's what he's on the injury report for. We also saw him get a key first down at the end when they're trying to burn the clock, and he stiff-armed a guy with his throwing shoulder, and he did the first down thing. You're a quarterback guy. Are there any red flags for you about what you've read so far about his shoulder and how that might impact his ability to throw his usual way, I guess?
Yes, because if you have a shoulder injury that to this point, a week into prep for a 2-week basically bye, and you're still not throwing, there might be something wrong. There might be a slight tear. We don't know. They may not divulge that there's a tear in his shoulder, but you'll start to see it if halfway through this coming week, if he's not really participating. And again, they're never going to show you the footage, but a throwing shoulder injury to a quarterback that late in a game is going to be a problem with a guy that already doesn't exactly have, like, yes, he can put the ball down the field, but I never looked at Drake May as a very high velocity thrower. Like, he doesn't have a lot of zip all the time with his ball. And now you're going to tell me that maybe he's got a nicked up right shoulder and he's going to throw. How much does that affect it when he has to potentially go to a volume passing game? Like, that's what a big part of this is. If Seattle takes a runaway, and the only way they can manufacture yards is by throwing it, the more he has to throw, the more that injury is going to start to get aggravated. And you can only shoot it up to numb it so much before it becomes a problem. Like, his delivery, too, is very over the top, which again creates strain on your shoulder and your throwing mechanics as a quarterback. It's that big old coming off the mound kind of over the top delivery. And when you do that, you pinch the top of your shoulder. You look at a lot of quarterbacks now, Sam Darnold being one of the more efficient movement guys, and it's really kind of from here the ball's coming out. So I'm not stressing that shoulder. When you have to stress your shoulder as a quarterback and you're throwing 30, 35 balls in a game and you're getting hit, makes me wonder how much that ball is going to start taking just a little bit off of it. And that 5-yard out's now one hopping, and that 15-yard in's now late.
Yeah.
Different things like that start to play a factor.
Quick add on that is that you might be wondering, well, why don't they just think if there's a tear, if they go to the backup? Well, Bryce or Dan on this too. If you got a guy with a 10% tear, I'm going to go to Joshua Dobbs. Which option are you taking in the Super Bowl?
Exactly.
I'm taking 80% of Drake May.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because another thing that popped out when we were watching him is, what's the thing that gives us issues when we play the Rams, and that Matt Stafford is able to have success against this Mike McDonald defense that shut so many other good quarterbacks down, including recently Brock Purdy when that offense was rolling as well as anyone in the league. And it's how quickly and decisively he makes the choice to rip balls downfield into tight windows. Drake's not, we don't see that quickness in his processing yet, and we see the extra hitch. We see the hesitation sometimes. He still makes plays, and that offensive line, maybe because of their schedule, we can talk about that, right? And who they've played. He gets time to throw the football. He's not under siege a lot. That line's been improved this year, but we just don't see the decisiveness that I feel like I would need to see from an opposing quarterback for me to be a little bit more nervous about this matchup.
Well, and the thing with May, again, and this is what I go back to, is just his limited experience in the NFL, right? Again, a lot of these guys, and this is one of my biggest gripes with Mendoza coming out, is it's such an RPO-based offense in college football. Because you have the wide hashes, you get bigger zones and areas to throw, and you're not throwing with as much anticipation because of the fact it's either give the ball or I'm quickly throwing a slant or a quick out or a flat or speed out. Now in the NFL, where he's now being put into a drop back situation where you're having to read and anticipate windows and you don't trust what you're doing or you don't trust what you're seeing, now you hang on to that ball a little half second longer. And that's where you look at Stafford. Like, one of Stafford's most anticipated throws in the NFC Championship game was when he came off the play fake and basically just turned and threw it to the window of where the over route was by the tight end. I can't remember if it was Higbee or Ferguson, and Chenna just gets a hand on it. But Stafford didn't even really look. He just knew based on what look he was getting pre-snap and where his guy's going in the concept, this is where I plant and let that ball go. You don't see that in Drake May's game. Drake May has to see you being open or where that window is to really cut it loose and let it go. That, again, now you incorporate a shoulder injury into it. Now I'm going to either throw way too early and I don't see it and I'm just hoping, or I have to make sure he's open, I'm hanging on to it, and now the pressure's getting to me.
I want to point out just a couple of things. There are some of you who are watching the stream currently in my YouTube channel, and I can see your comments in YouTube, but not through the streaming software we use. There's still just a connection issue related to the hacking of my channel a couple weeks ago. So I see you in there, 3 guns deep. I see some of you guys. We just can't put those comments on the screen over in StreamYard. Anything, well, I guess there'd be something. Give me one thing that gives you pause, that does make you a little bit nervous, that you're concerned that the Patriots have the ability to do to us that could cause some problems.
I think the only possibility for them to get a victory in this game outside of them getting a massive amount of turnovers is that they just hammer the run game into the A and the B gaps, and they just stay hyper concentrated. They embrace the potential of punting, but just getting into third and shorts, just being as much as like 60% run to pass kind of ratio. And if they can find a way to do that and maybe get a turnover to the other side of the ball, shorten the game, get a turnover or two on the other side of the ball, play a clean game on the offensive side of the ball, that is really their only path. That is stuffing the camel right through the eye of the needle to me. I don't think they can get it done, but I think they're going to give it a try because I don't see them trying to come out and go 35 passing attempts with a, let's call it 95% Drake May against this defense. Like, I don't know if I'd like to take that approach if I'm McDaniels.
What about the fear of the unknown? Because we know that Mike Vrabel has some Bill Belichick in him. Josh McDaniels does as well. And what I mean by that is on both sides of the ball, these guys can recreate a game plan that looks nothing like anything you've seen on tape from them before. They'll run an entirely different defensive scheme from one week to the next. And on offense, they'll show you things that they haven't shown on tape. What's something that concerns you that they might be able to do to the Seahawks?
Well, I think in that, I would have more faith in the switch there, Dan, of being able to throw something out and come up with it on the defensive side, not on offense. You don't have Tom Brady at quarterback. You don't have a guy that you can be like, hey, we're scrapping
Tom's
this.
in Vegas trying to steal our coordinator.
Exactly. But that's my point. When you look at Josh McDaniels' success in those Super Bowls when they had to throw a game plan out and change it, you're doing it with a Hall of Fame GOAT-level quarterback, not a guy on year 2 that is now playing in his first ever major playoff game against a major defense outside of Houston and Denver, right? We're talking about the number 1 defense, scoring defense in the NFL with the top defensive mind in the NFL, where Mike now has 2 weeks of film watching of Drake May, what they like to do against elite defenses back-to-back weeks, and he's going to take that stuff away. Now, on the other side of that with Mike Vrabel, the Belichick aspect is there in the core of their defense. They're a 3-4 base, 4-3 over-under team with the principles of what Bill Belichick installed way back when he used to deal with Peyton Manning in that group. They're multiple. They like to do different things. But again, they have weaknesses in their players. You have a situation where if you catch them, because like we've talked about with Mike McDonald, Nick Eamon-War is the ultimate matchup nightmare. He can be 4-3 Sam linebacker. He can be your 4-2-5 nickel backer, if you want to call him that, nickel. With New England, they got to sub guys in. They got to change their linebackers. They got to change their rushers. So you get them in these sub packages. If you get a situation where Harold Landry's out there and it's first down and it's not a third down passing situation and you can run at him, you run the football at him. And so this is where it's going to be really interesting with Mike Vrabel is how does he adjust to a team with Clint Kubiak, with the weapons we have, with the tight ends we have, to actually be able to play his subs and his matchups properly. Because if he gets caught a few times, Sam's going to see it, Kubiak's going to see it, and they're going to start figuring out these tendencies real quick and start to exploit them.
To Dan's point on this, there's no way they're playing nickel against our 12 personnel. They've showed all over their tape time and time again that they're rocking base, just like the Rams did. This goes right back to Bryce's point on that you're restricted from doing the Bill Belichick stuff. And part of the reason Bill Belichick could do it because he had defenders that were very versatile as well. Yep. They could do a variety of different things, and he sought it out.
He had a lot of veterans.
He did, and he also sought it out as a skill set. I want to have you do a lot of things. And Mike's kind of cut from the same cloth a little bit, but this is Vrabel inheriting a roster that is still in a transitional period, and he's not got all of his right guys in there to run his defense in the exact fashion he'd like to run it.
I mean, kudos to them for playing as well as they have. Schedule be damned, but they just don't have any game wreckers. Like we like Christian Gonzalez on the outside and what he does on the back end. Milton Williams obviously has been a force. That was really well spent free agency money. But outside of that, they just don't have anyone you have to game plan for.
No. I mean, it's literally like the pass catchers. Diggs is not Diggs of his prime, and Kayshon Boutte is still a very young kid that's still just kind of coming along and finding his way. It's that you just don't feel threat. Even Trayvon Henderson, who everyone thought was going to be the new Jahmyr Gibbs, looks kind of a little ways away from Jahmyr Gibbs. Not to say he can't be dangerous, Bryce, but I mean, it's. He's rough on his reads out of the backfield. The pass protection, Bryce mentioned about that. He's a nightmare in pass pro. They don't trust him at all back there, which makes him kind of predictable. That's where we get to that. You mentioned the unpredictability, Dan. That's where it's like it's hard for them to be unpredictable because they've got roster personnel stuff to Landry's point on early downs or Trayvon Henderson in pass protection. It's like they're not going to feel comfortable doing that on either side of it.
No.
He killed me in fantasy this year with that slow start. I'm telling you what, absolutely killed me. TreVeyon Henderson.
Let me get to the final with that move.
By the time he got hot, it was too late for me. Speaking of young players, I mean, we are here for the Senior Bowl. We've been planning this ever since August when we hung out together during training camp and formed the Syndicate, and it became what it is known as today. But if you'd have told us that the Seahawks were being in the Super Bowl, maybe we would have changed some travel plans, because nobody wants to talk about the draft this week for good reason. But we're here. And so we thought we'd give you just a couple of our impressions, and then, each of us individually will do some content later on. But just some standouts. We saw the game today. It's not really about the game as much as it is about what we see in practice and the accumulation of that. Plus, we get a lot of guys that pull out of the game at the last minute, guys that maybe feel like they showed enough during the week. It was cold. It was really windy, gusts up to 40 miles an hour today with about 28 degrees. Tough day for the quarterbacks to throw the football. But just some overall impressions and some guys that caught your eye this week that you think might be Seahawk fits.
Well, I think Kaelon Black, Indiana, as a guy that I don't know if he'll quite get into day two, but I thought he showed some real good compact running with some burst and some speed. I came in here loving Jennings Dunker, man. He was one of my draft crushes, maybe my biggest draft crush as far as a guy that you could potentially land on. I keep thinking he's not going to last, but if he were to 32, and I would be jumping up and down to take him. That kid's so much fun, and he's positional versatile. He could solve your right guard needs into the future. Malachi Fields, the Notre Dame kid, was really nice as a wide receiver, I think, throughout the week, and he did show up a little bit today. Jacoby Lane, the other USC kid that runs opposite Mekhi Lemon out there, who's kind of the forgotten man a little bit, but very much a kid that was separating and doing a good job in his route running throughout the course of this week. There was a couple guys in there. Malik Muhammad, I thought, showed out in practice a couple days. He didn't play in the game here, I don't think, today. Lee Hunter, a defensive tackle, was really controlling some things out there and really standing out. Boy, that Texas Tech defensive line, and Romelo too. So there were some really good guys. I do feel like collectively I come out of this going, I feel, again, walking into it, before we walked in to look at these guys in person, going, there's some solid floors, but I do have some questions about the ceilings across the board in this class from the first round on through the sixth round. And I still remain in a position of saying, hey, I like some solidity on the floor. I like solid floors are nice, but we're not going to have a lot of ceilings off the back of these guys watching them in person, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know what's been harder this week. Trying to get to know the class, because I'm starting so late with the Seahawks just kept winning, or trying to find fits just because there are the glaring needs on the roster just don't exist, right? And so you can literally do best player available, and 4 months out from the draft, we just don't know how that board's going to fall. But some guys that you really like that look like Seahawks to you.
So the first one I'm going to talk about, I kind of liked his tape coming out of Missouri, and then watching him in person really stood out to me throughout day one all the way through the game today, and that's Zion Young, the edge out of Missouri. I like what he brings. I think he comes in, and I personally think he would be an upgrade over a Boye Mafe. I think he plays the technique that Mike wants. He's more powerful. He does a lot of the things you see Tank Lawrence do. Now, again, I'm not saying this guy's coming in and going to be an elite pass rusher. That's not what you're getting in this draft class. This is, how do we reinforce our 1 through 70 roster and add guys in that can help in the rotation in the skill set we need. And that's why I think with sometimes this year with Boye Mafe, when you saw Derek Hall or a Chenna or a Tank have to come out of the game and you put Boye Mafe in there, teams figured out, hey, this is a moment of kind of not weakness, but just a chink in that armor. Let's take advantage of it. Now when you bring in a guy like a Zion Young, he now helps reinforce that, I think, a bit. He can play in the early downs and run defense. He's a good run-setting edge. But he's also got a little bit in the pass game. I think I'd like to see in his pass rush game a little bit more of the counter develop potentially. But he's very much a bull rush, get my hands into you, and then I'm going to determine which way I'm going based on the pocket. Another guy that I really do like as a receiver that came out of this draft class, or is in this draft class, is Vinny Anthony Jr. out of Wisconsin. Watching him run routes this weekend, he's a bit of a bigger guy, can contribute on some special teams, good gunner at Wisconsin when he did get those opportunities, but he's another guy that's physical, he can block, he's really good in the run blocking game, but he's also got some speed and separation for a bigger receiver. So he's a guy that stood out to me. But again, I'm going to lean to Brandon's point on this. This isn't a draft where you're looking to get game changers. This is a draft where you're looking to get the B+. Can we hit on some B+, some C+ players in here, reinforce the back end of our roster, guys that we can be more confident in than having to go pluck guys off of practice squads to bring in when we're in a pinch because injuries have hit us.
Yeah, Young was nice, and kudos to him for playing in the game today because he had such a good week. He probably would have been justified in pulling out. He this is how much of an impression he made. He was defensive player of the game today, and he only had 2 tackles. Yeah. But he had pressures. He had multiple pressures. He had a forced fumble, knocked the ball out on a nice. Yeah, the motor is there. We saw some nice run setting edge play from him today. Actually,
I think, and to that, I think you were looking at more early on before we even got into here. Is this and what we've got with that him, and then I think Dennis Sutton with a 3 stack in there, maybe into sort of second, third roundish range.
Yeah,
3 guys that fit to the marker like he talked about, of those power edges that can control off the edge rather than it being about them being super twitchy, which is not the type Mike, wouldn't turn it down, I'm sure, but it's not necessarily the type he's looking for at the forefront.
Right.
And those 3 guys all I thought stood out. And you were on it with Derek Moore coming into this.
Yeah, Derek Moore had a nice week, didn't play in the game today, unfortunately, but he's a guy that's helped himself. You start to see him sneak into some first-round mocks now. And that pick number 31 or 32, I would encourage y'all to stop thinking about it of whether it's a first-round value or not, because you're just on most teams' boards, by the time you get past 16, 17, 18, you're not going to have first-round grades anyway. So you have to start thinking about it more in line with, how much do we like a player? How much does the need align with what we need? And how much do we think there's a shot that he'll be there at 64 or 63? Because it's you kind of throw value out the window with a class like this. It's just, who do we want that we aren't willing to risk losing between now and 63? Well, let's take him now, even if maybe the consensus board might have him at 40. For example, and Zion Young's one of those guys. Derek Moore, they might kind of fit in that same spot. LT Overton, I thought, had a really interesting week. He's another guy that fits that mold where he's not twitchy, but he's a big kind of a base edge, but he's got a motor to him. Really intense. He runs plays down from the backside. Did some really cool things in the one-on-ones. He's got a little bit of shake and wiggle. And then the Oklahoma kid. Who I keep blanking on his name, but the D tackle that kind of came into our view late in the week. He had the spin move today and the swim. We saw some really cool stuff from him on the inside today.
I'm spacing on him too.
I'm pulling it up right now.
I'll tell you what, and I know what a lot of the fans are going to say, even the ones that really like to follow the draft in here. Is they're going to say, because I even got this last year, why do we need a defensive tackle? We're fine at defensive tackle. Don't take a defensive tackle. First of all, you can never have too many of those guys. Second of all, best player available, right? That's what John Schneider's been doing. That's worked so well the last 5 years. Third of all, Jaron Reed, 32 years old. Leo Williams on the other side of 30. Mike Morris is just a guy. He hasn't really taken that step that we're looking for him. They didn't really seem comfortable enough to give Jared Ivey any run this year as an inside-out kind of guy. There's some interesting tackles in here. Caleb Banks really came on after Wednesday. It was dominant at times, Wednesday, Thursday, and in the game today out of Florida after missing most of the season with injury. So some intriguing guys. And the running backs, you guys mentioned it. Black, I thought, was great today. My guy, Mike Washington Jr. from Arkansas early on, had a couple nice runs. Seth McGowan out of Kentucky. He's compact, kind of built like K9, runs really hard, had a 28-yarder today. And then Jaden Ott from Oklahoma, who hardly had any carries for the Sooners this year after transferring over from Cal. Averaged 5.3 yards a carry, had a touchdown, eight carries, 42 yards, ran really hard, showed some good burst and vision. This running backs got a lot of attention last year. I think this group here at the Senior Bowl anyway might have been a little better.
Potentially. I like a couple of them, but I'm still kind of getting warmed up to them, to be honest with you.
And our favorite guys didn't play today.
Yeah, we didn't get to say, and we did lose the other Penn State kid to a broken foot this week, but I got a chance to interview Katron Allen for Roundtable Sports, and he was a kid that I thought impressed this week as well. Yep. And he stood out. It would have been cool to see him in the game and with a couple of those holes that McGowan was being given, because he might have busted a couple of those. But they're solid. They're not bad. I'd say that to your point. And it's not like it's a huge shelf of a drop off from last year.
There's a concept I want to discuss, and I think this just goes straight to John Schneider and his scouting staff and how smart they are. And we've known this for years. And if we could ever break into the offices at VMAC and break into John's office, we would see whiteboards, and there's all sorts of different ones. You have your current depth chart with your 70 players and where they all rank. You'll see grades on the wall of other pro players around the NFL that they have grades on that might be coming available. And then when they start to look at the draft, they don't just look at this coming April. They look years in advance. And they knew last April that this class wasn't going to be as good as last year's class, and certainly not as good as 2027, which everyone's expecting to potentially be an epic class. So when they make decisions that in the moment catch us by surprise, such as Elijah Arroyo in the second round at tight end, Jalen Milroe in the third round at quarterback. How good do those picks now? Because this tight end class in this entire draft, and certainly the guys we saw them out here, all they did today in the game is drop passes. A couple of them led to turnovers. And the quarterback group this year, you don't want to be hunting for a developmental quarterback that might have starter quality. Those look like inspired choices now, taking those guys last year, because you're not going to get them out of this draft.
You're really not. And I think not only us with Arroyo, but I think this also explains why you saw Fannin and also Ferguson go in the second round, where all those two were kind of going, it's a little early, not bad, just a little early. And you go, that's all those teams kind of getting up ahead of that, because folks, the tight end class is brutal. Drops everywhere. The things you're going to be like talking about with these guys are like, well, he's a blocker. He gets after the run game. But when it comes to pass catching, running routes, being somewhat twitchy even just bare minimum twitch, not happening there. So to your point, good to get out ahead of that one. And this is part of the scouting process you don't think about, that, hey, look up ahead of when you're drafting this year a little bit, because a guy you're maybe looking to get, you think, I get this year. You're not going to be able to get him next year. Got to get while the getting's good.
And what really points that out, I think about like the worst tight end that I saw here last year. And worse just being relative to the guys that were here. It's probably Jake Brenningstool, the kid from Clemson, right? He was kind of a glorified ex-receiver, not really a true tight end, but he moved really well. He was athletic. He ran really good routes. There wasn't anybody out here this year that was as good as him. No. And he came after Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson, the kid from Pitt that came out last year. It was just, it doesn't even compare.
Well, look at the tight end today running down the seam and caused Nussmeier's interception that he threw. He hit him in the hands.
Right in the hands, yeah. And my goodness, not a year to need a quarterback.
Nope.
Although the one story I think out of that group this week is Garrett Nussmeier did some work to rehabilitate his profile a little bit this week. Probably not all the way up into the first round like he was being projected before the college football season, but he might have worked his way into, he might be pushing Ty Simpson for quarterback 2 in this class.
Maybe. Ty didn't show up. Maybe gotten that information. He's a first round pick.
He should have been here.
Ty should have been here. I think if you're looking at the 4 quarterbacks in that range of 1 through round 3, Mendoza obviously is going to be pick 1. We've kind of heard that, unless the Raiders completely shock everybody and go somewhere else. Ty Simpson's the other one that is the name. Number 3 and 4 is probably Nussmeier. Yeah. And then the other name, and I know this is going to make you cringe, but based on this class, is probably Carson Beck.
God. Beck and Drew Aller are the 2 guys I keep forgetting about.
As long as you don't make him throw past 6 yards, he's fine.
Exactly, I know, right? But just that's where you're at with this quarterback class. And the thing that really came out to me in this, Diego Pavia should not be drafted. He is a UDFA at best. There are, just watching him try and get out from under center and stumbling over his own feet, not even getting stepped on. He literally tripped over his own feet on a handoff. And it was like, this is where you can see the separation in guys that can play. And again, first read's not there. Well, I'm going to run. Guess what? You're playing against college guys right now. You're not running away from Tank Lawrence. You're not running away from Derek Hall and guys at the NFL level that are faster. I don't see a path for Diego Pavia. Maybe, Darren, you brought it up. Maybe he comes the poster child for the UFL.
He's the kind of player the UFL should be working hard,
100%
hard to get. Yeah.
Or he ends up north of the border in Canada, because at least in the Canadian field, it's 65 yards wide, and he can really run all the way he wants to out there.
The new Doug Flutie.
Exactly, the new Doug Flutie to a point, because he's the smallest quarterback currently that's been around the NFL since Doug. The quarterback play made me cringe when I was there watching it, and it was like, turn away and go find another drill to watch, because even just to see what are we working with here, and then seeing what it actually was when you saw it all come together in the game, it was like, eek. Like, if you're a team that's desperate for a quarterback, like an Arizona Cardinals that want a quarterback because they don't know what they're going to do with Kyler, this is not the draft. Like, I would put it this way. Shedeur Sanders would be pushing QB2 right now, and like not even close QB2 in this draft.
Yeah. Well, usually one of the first rounders is here, if not more. And last year Jackson Dart was here, so just nowhere close this year. I mean, Nussmeier you have as a 4th rounder. Are you thinking about, or you had him as a 5th? You're thinking about bumping him up to the 4th?
Yeah, I might go to top. I might go into the 3rd, 4th, but I think when he tests, he's going to probably run like a 4.7, a 4.75, and a lot of people you've made, and I think it's a good comparison to Brock Purdy, and there's a lot of that within his game that you'd see from Brock Purdy, but the problem being is he doesn't have the scoot. that Brock Purdy's got. And that's a huge part of Brock's
you were
game.
talking about like his 10-yard split.
Yeah, he was a 1.52 10-yard split guy with Brock, and that's for folks for a comparison. Jameer Gibbs was a 1.52, I believe. Wow. It's something in that same type of territory. So that's that's elite get up and go, and that's a very important thing when you have an undersized quarterback that might have tip downs and I got hands in passing lanes. I need a break outside the pocket to go find a hole out there to go throw it. And he does throw well in the run. He showed that today. He can throw off platform. He's a coach's son. He's very mechanically clean. And to Bryce's point, me and Bryce were having to avert our eyes because Bryce, especially, he's a quarterback coach. So it's like watching the mechanics from these guys on top of the lack of talent was the beautiful part. Because I can get the lack of talent. I don't have the arm strength to push, but everything, footwork, rotation, how the ball was coming out, the base. What's the base guy with the thin base?
Oh, Taylor Green.
Taylor Green's got
Taylor Green.
It was rough all across the board.
He threw some balls today that just hit the turf nowhere near anyone.
I would suggest Taylor Green consider it 6'6". Hey, I'm going to go try and play X receiver and be a red zone target because he looks, when he's in the pocket and he's bouncing, he looks like a pogo stick because his feet are like this far apart where you should have a base that's shoulder width and they ain't shoulder width, and then he drives off and throws, and it's like it's a 10-yard in cut, and that ball is almost 3 yards ahead of the receiver and about 5 yards over their head.
Well, and isn't it true, because you hear all this in baseball all the time about taller starting pitchers. Like, it's harder the taller and longer you are to be consistent with your mechanics, isn't it? And he is not consistent with his mechanics.
He strikes me as a guy that somebody saw throw the ball and how athletic he was, and like, let's turn him into a quarterback.
Yeah.
He's a great RPO quarterback through the high school and college game with the wide hash because he's probably extremely athletic, which we've seen. But when you try again, and this is where I get so frustrated, and you probably, if you watched the Senior Bowl today, you saw the two sets of hashes. The ones that are on the wide outside of that, those are college hashes. The ones that they played on were the inside hashes, which are the NFL. There's a stark difference when you're running a sprint out or a QB boot and you got that wide hash and there is a massive amount of space afforded to you. As a coach, I'm going, great, if I got a real good athlete back there that can throw the 10-yard out consistently enough, I can run flood all day to the field side, and if he doesn't like it, then he just takes off and scoots and goes because he's faster than the linebacker that's chasing him.
Yeah, indeed. Let's get to some questions. And again, some of this will kind of cover some ground that we've covered already, but here's one right off the top. Thomas Cox, what are your thoughts on Jeff Bezos as an owner? So the assumption, and for good reason, immediately is that Bezos would become the leader in the clubhouse by the team. Why? Not only because he can afford it. I mean, this $8 million would be pocket change. He could probably literally just pull that out of his sock drawer. I looked it up again today. I think as of July of last year, his estimated net worth was over $200 billion. Yeah. So he can afford the 8 with cash. He doesn't need to, borrow any money or partner with anyone. But it's that he has not only expressed interest in owning an NFL team before, but taken a shot at it with the Commanders. Daniel Snyder just did not want to sell to him because he's a petty SOB. But also we've heard that the league wants him as an owner. So it makes all the sense in the world. Now, some of the pushback that I got online for even suggesting it yesterday was, guy's a very controversial businessman and business owner, and we know there are some things about over the years at Amazon and working conditions and things like that people disagree with. The fact that he's moved out of Washington, so I got a lot of like, why would he buy the team? He doesn't even live there. Well, most NFL owners, well, I don't know about most, but many, not all of them live in the city that they own a team in. They probably have several houses. Some of them do. Sure. So that doesn't matter and wouldn't preclude someone from living there. We also know that we don't know all the language in the trust, but we know what's been reported. And one of the things being reported about the language in the trust, first of all, that it had to be sold at some point. So we knew this was coming. Second of all, the money needs to go to charities that Paul Allen has already specified. That the emphasis has to be, first and foremost, to finding a local owner, someone with local interests. And also someone that doesn't want to move the team. That's another big fear that people have. This is my answer to this. I don't have, and I don't think anyone has any definitive idea to know how Jeff Bezos would run an NFL franchise. We don't know. Would he be hands-on? Would he try to be Jerry Jones? Would he just leave everybody in place, which he should, and just let good people do their jobs? I don't know. Yeah. None of us do.
I don't either, and I think with any owner, you're going to have a little bit of risk. You're not going to know what you're going to get until you got it. We didn't know with Paul what he was exactly going to do until he actually got in and was rolling. I think that people's trepidation towards Bezos is somewhat understandable. I would offer that any billionaire running the game today has probably got some cutthroat stuff in their background a little bit. You're not going to get some clean Paul Allen-like person's like, well, he helped create Microsoft, and you just got this guy that's just maybe, but much more likely you got to go find somebody like the Broncos did here recently to go to the Walton family, who they themselves don't exactly have the greatest history as far as their outlook on this in the same kind of light, yet they had the Broncos back on the edge of a Super Bowl here only a couple of years into their ownership. And why I mention this is because the most important part for me is making sure that whatever owner comes in here is ultimately got a deep pocketbook and is ultimately committed to winning at the forefront in what they want to do. And that you need a guy that's not going to be financially impelled, like we see with the Bengals, like we've seen with the Raiders, like we've seen with countless organizations, which all the billions they make, or all the hundreds of millions they make every year in profit, still these owners are sometimes scrambling at times to meet those escrows costs, because it's the escrow, where if you sign a $200 million contract and there's $80 million of guarantees, those have to go into escrow immediately. And so this creates, if you put 4 or 5 of those contracts out, you're up to $500 million really quick. And not any owner just has that. And so it's a very important piece to this puzzle. I also think people got to understand with what Paul Allen's done on this guidance, he's guided this thing from the grave. He's guided this thing with an outlook of what he's wanted to do since he walked in here, and his sister has carried that on. Do we really think, after going through all of that he wouldn't stipulate or have in the trust some kind of tenets in place to both make sure Seattle stays in Seattle, and that whoever's coming in is not just going to, wipe their ass essentially with the organization and try and do a bunch of out-of-pocket type of stuff? Yeah. I can't see it at this point taking this far down the line, especially the sister taking us now to the Super Bowl in the process as she's guided.
And to that point, and I know that similar situations in the past to this, where it's a trust that owns the team and is running it, sometimes there is specific language in the trust that they would be bound to accept the highest bid no matter what. I highly doubt that Paul Allen would write his will and his trust that way, and that Jody will have all the leeway and that she would possibly want to make a decision on someone that she thinks would be a good steward to carry the franchise on.
Yeah.
I don't see a way that you're going to know what the owner's going to do until we see what they do.
Unless he's owned a pro franchise before.
Correct. Unless he's someone like that. And so there's the other name out there that some people have thrown around, which is Steve Ballmer, who owns the Clippers, who may be someone that may be inclined to do this as well and come back and buy the team.
The Woot Ang Life says Ballmer already said in public statements he does not want to buy the Hawks. I haven't seen that. I don't know. I can't confirm that or not.
I haven't either.
But he does have his hands full, and he's been in some hot water lately. I don't know if the NFL would be all that happy about entertaining him as an owner, honestly.
Well, Bryce mentioned, I was thinking this too, and that I think that this is also an explanation for why this story potentially is coming down right now, and it's more than just Kraft trying to be evil and operate within the evil empire methodology and approach, which is that somebody may have come down and sat on the Seahawks team and thought about wanting to buy him anyway before this all came down this season. And if you were somewhat hot to try to buy in the Seattle Seahawks, and now you've got the youngest, hottest NFL coach in the game, you got your quarterback set for years to come, you got you're heading to the Super Bowl as the Super Bowl favorites, and you want to come in and maybe go, Jody, hey, let's blow you away with the offer. I'm saying it's maybe a possibility here,
Yeah. And there's a chance that the next owner of the Seattle Seahawks is someone we don't know, aren't talking about right now, and might not even know who the hell they are when it's divulged. I don't know who all the billionaires are. I don't know who all the people are in this country that can afford to buy a football team. Those guys live in the shadows, and I don't really pay attention to it. It could completely catch us by surprise.
100%.
One other factor in this, and I think we kind of threw it around a little bit last night, kind of, half-heartedly, is what happens if it's Jody? What happens if she wants to potentially, you never know, potentially go outside the trust and buy it? It still stays within the Allen family, but the trust does say you do have to sell the team. You cannot just keep it in the trust.
Does she have $8 billion?
You never, who knows what she has, right? But I'm just saying.
See what Google says.
There is a possibility that maybe that's the way that, or maybe it's her and somebody else.
They might figure into her net worth the trust. So I don't know if there's.
They might. Let us know, folks, too, if the audio is just a little bit in and out. I'm getting a little bit of
has an estimated net worth of $20 billion. She could pull it off. Nobody's commented on the audio yet. Peter Go Hawks, always a really good supporter. Thank you again for the super chat. I hope Clint Kubiak doesn't go, but if so, good luck in the AFC West. Hey, when we were talking about this earlier, it reminded me that when Mike McDonald was hired, and we talked about the fear of hiring a defensive guy and what that might do and how challenging that is to find a good offensive play caller. And if you find a good one, then you lose them. And at the time, I think we all felt like, well, if that happens, it's probably a good thing and it means the team's really successful. Well, now here we are getting ready to play in the Super Bowl. And a big part of that reason is Clint Kubiak has come in and solidified this offense and taken it in a direction that we haven't seen since the days of Mike Holmgren. And we're going to lose him, and now we're having to remind ourselves that's how we were supposed to feel, because the reality of it, it sucks.
It does suck, but
and this won't be the last time.
No, it won't.
Mike McDonald's going to be here for a long time, won a lot of football games. We're going to go through a lot of OCs.
Potentially, yeah. Or you get a situation where Arthur Smith does come in. Maybe he doesn't want to be a head coach again and just stays.
Maybe he took interviews this year.
He took interviews at what programs? Was it just...
He's kind of a surly guy. I mean, he might not be everyone's cup of tea. Yeah, I could see him being a guy that it might take him a little while to rehabilitate his image.
And you got to also think, too, with it, that he and Mike clearly know each other, because when Mike was initially going to get hired, he was Mike's first choice. I've had multiple sources tell me that was the case, but he couldn't wait. He wanted a job. He wanted security after the Atlanta situation, so he went to Pittsburgh. If Mike's so confident in that guy, there's a chance maybe they had a conversation where Arthur Smith goes, like when he worked under Mike Vrabel, hey, I'm good being here and working under this coach because they're going to let me do my thing. Yep. I don't have to take on the responsibility of being a head coach again and just keep running the offense as it should go. Because, again, he left Vrabel to expand out and be a head coach. I think if he hadn't had that inclination to do that and just wanted to stay, he would have stayed with Vrabel as long, because they had a great working relationship from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Another one from Peter Gohawk says it's around a $12,000 payout. Next Sunday, April, it was plus 6,600. Did any of you place a bet on the Seahawks back in April or May? I would love to know that. And if any of you did, and you got those odds, and now here we are on the verge of potentially a Super Bowl championship, I would love to know that. Throw that in the comments. That would be kudos to you. Thomas Cox, 9362. Thank you for the $5 donation. I know that Arthur Smith had an unfair deal, but all I care about is that he can keep the offense going like Kubiak.
Exactly. Hand the baton off. That's the thing that I've said. And again, if your process is the right one that brought us to Kubiak, which would be the same right one here, and somebody that's done it before and has success in doing it before and can seamlessly take this offense over and utilize a lot of the parts that Kubiak has established, you don't have to take a step back.
Thomas again, $2 donation. Thank you, buddy. What's your opinion on Josh McCown, Grant Udinski, and Antoine Randall L? That's a name I haven't heard in a while. Problem with McCown and Udinski, they've never called plays before, first of all, and you've talked extensively about that the other night and the concern with that. Where this team is, you shouldn't have to settle for that. You shouldn't have to take that kind of a risk. But also, those are two guys, McCown and Udinski, that are considered young. They're not considered young. They are young and considered very hot. Josh McCown actually got a head coaching interview by the Texans a couple of years ago. And Udinski got a bunch of head coaching jobs this year, or interviews. He's only 30 years old. Problem there, those guys come in and have one good year, they're gone.
Well, they come in, they have one good year, they're gone, and then you're also taking, my big issue with this is that you've got a Super Bowl ready roster. We are literally in the Super Bowl, so nobody can deny next year we are a Super Bowl favorite, contender, bare minimum. And I guess I would just ask those folks out there that want to test these unproven guys, especially these guys that are sub 30 years old, do you want to go into the season and have the risk that you come to find that your offensive coordinator is one of the main factors holding you back to going and making another Super Bowl run? Is that something that makes you guys comfortable for this unknown upside that, to Dan's point, potentially just leaves after a year from now after you take that risk? And from my standpoint, I don't really want to do that. I'd much rather stay in the standard of you have guys that are competent play callers who call plays like recently, in the now, not 8 years ago, but right now know what's going on, and you go. And then if you're going to miss the Super Bowl, it's going to be for other reasons. Maybe your offense doesn't have the upside of some of these dynamic 28-year-old mastermind geniuses that are just an inch away, but nobody gives play calling duties to, for some reason, though, despite the fact that they're just amazing minds. Nobody lets them call plays, but they're amazing minds. I get real nervous on this, and I think it would be what we come to find is it would hold us back. And the people that have these eyes set on people that are untested and unproven would come to find that, oh man, that ended up being, he wasn't ready, and there's nothing we can do about it, and we're mid-season, and we're stuck in this now until the end of the season like we were with Grubb. Like
And
Rick Baldwin.
I'll say one more thing about it too. If you're going to take a risk and go with a guy that hasn't called plays in the NFL, you've got 3 guys on your staff that are qualified candidates to do that. And if you go that way, you might have a better chance to retain as much of that staff as possible and keep Kubiak from taking a bunch with him. If you're going to take a risk on a guy that hasn't done it before, Justin Outen, Jake Peets, Andrew Janocko, they're right there in your building.
Yeah, and that's the thing. At least Outen does have some play calling experience. That's the only thing with him. Not a great year, though, let's be honest. It was a 2022 Broncos.
He had Russell Wilson, a dysfunctional head coach,
Yep.
and the head coach had to do something. He needed a scapegoat, so he pulled play calling from Outen halfway through the season
Yep.
and gave it to Clint Kubiak.
Correct.
Actually.
Before he got fired, and then Clint basically ran the show kind of from there. Again, I really align with Brandon on this, where you have a Super Bowl window that is now open. You don't shut it by going and risking elite offense. Again, we're talking about a top 5 offense in the NFL this year for scoring and all those things. You don't risk shutting that down and making it super dysfunctional because you have someone at the controls that can't get the car to start. That's the big thing here. You're looking at a Ferrari with the Seattle Seahawks and this offense. You want to hand the key to somebody that can at least get you from point A to point B as safely with as few speed bumps and bumps in the road. You don't want someone sitting there who's lurching the car because they can't get it out of first gear.
Amen.
Let me ask you this before I go on to the next comments. The Arthur Smith Ohio State thing, that he actually signed his deal and they announced him as on board. The timing of that is odd. That it happens on the day that Clint Kubiak is interviewing. Because we talked the other night about how, look, if Kubiak's leaning towards the Raiders, if this thing is essentially a done deal and they're going to tie it all up here in the next couple of days, and again, can't sign anything till after the Super Bowl, but you can sure as hell say, hey, we'll give you a $25 million, we'll give you $75 million over 5 years guaranteed. Will you be our new head coach? Yeah, I will. You can have a verbal agreement, right? But they certainly, Kubiak would be communicating that back to the Seahawks. The Seahawks would know how close this is, so they can start doing their work in the background, try and get a jump on any kind of a search through back channels and their connections, so that they can get out there and find a successor as quickly as possible. Arthur Smith signing today. You see what I'm getting at, right? If Smith was a guy and you had heard recently that there had been some talks and they reached out to him, wouldn't he wait another day or two? Maybe this is a sign he's not interested. It just seems weird.
Could it be impacted by the recruiting on the college level?
Yes.
Well, signing day was 3 weeks ago. The portal's closed. I don't know.
But you could have guys that decide they want to transfer out. That's
The portal's closed.
You can still throw your name in it. You may
You
not
can't throw it in. If it's in already, even though it's closed, if it's in already and you haven't committed, you can still go somewhere. But no, you can't enter the portal now.
What if they've entered the portal?
Well,
There's a bunch of
yeah.
Ohio State guys that entered the portal with that open status. Why wouldn't you do it if there's nothing
That's
to lose by
kinda what
doing
I was
that?
meaning,
Yeah.
to Brandon's point. And here's the other thing, and this is just, again,
And Ohio
speculation.
State could just be a matter of like they were pressuring him. Like, hey, let's get this done. We want to
Right.
announce this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, you can always leave later.
Right.
Or-
like Grubb did.
Yeah,
Grubb did this
exactly.
exact thing.
And so here's the other aspect of it too, though, is does this also mean that Smith has had contact with Seattle? Seattle knows what's going on with Kubiak. Obviously, they're going to be in contact with it. And maybe they've already gone to Outen and said, hey, Clint's leaving. We need to know if it's you or if we need to go and pivot to this. And Justin goes, or Outen goes, yep, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stay. This is my plan. And Seattle and Mike McDonald go, okay, we're comfortable. Arthur Smith, we've got our succession plan in-house. You can go ahead and sign.
Yeah, it could be. I think we agree on this. It's not going to look like the last search. It's not going to draw out for 6 weeks. They're not going to go turn over a bunch of stones. They're not going to look at guys like Hank Fraley and try to, just conceive of what an OC might be. I think it's going to happen pretty quickly, and we'll see the pivot
Agreed.
in short order. This is funny though. Randy McDaniel says, "What about Smith's dad buying the Hawks? Didn't he? He's like he founded FedEx, right, or something like that. He's like his dad's a billionaire."
Arthur Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But in that case, maybe he fires Mike McDonald and then gives Arthur Smith the head
Gives
coaching
Arthur the
job. Let's
job.
hope
Exactly.
his dad doesn't buy the team. That might cause all
Yeah,
sorts of problems.
that's-
I don't know about that. There's Randy McDaniel. Always good to see
Thank
you,
you,
buddy.
Randy.
Thank you. $4.99 dono. Randy isn't worried if the Hawks are sold. I like the third person reference there. Nice. I don't see Jody pulling a trader move like Schultz did. Tend to think it'd be Bomber with the MS and the NBA connection. Yeah, I think he's talking about maybe the potential to move them. That was a big thing that I got a lot of blowback on yesterday is people really, and people outside the market, non-Seahawk fans, that's their favorite thing to do. Well, you're going to lose the team just like you did the basketball. Anyone buying the Seahawks is going to be buying them because of the value they see they have in that market with a paid-off stadium, one of the great stadiums in the league, and it's paid for, a rabid fan base, a sold-out season ticket base with a waiting list that's 20,000 long, the executive of the year is your GM, and one of the best young coaches in the league, and one of the best rosters in the league, and maybe a Lombardi in the case. You're not changing a thing unless you're an idiot.
And don't also forget, they'll probably have one of the best training facilities in the NFL and organizational staffs for that as well.
Yep. Amen.
Yeah, that VMAX hard to match, man. Here's Peter again. We're gonna be fine, 12s. I like this. Let's just calm. Everybody just take it. Whew. We're gonna be fine, 12s. We're young, hungry, still have a great head coach. He'll figure it out with John. Relax. We're in the damn Super Bowl. Yeah, and I understand there was frustration. A lot of people last night are like, why do we have to talk about this? Why can we just shut up? Don't talk about it. It's news.
Yep.
It's news. It needs to be talked. You might not want to, but it has to be acknowledged.
Yeah, it's important. It's something we got to. It's probably got to. There's some teeth to it probably, and we know that they're going to be, whether this is real or not. The sales coming down. So the fact that this just came out of nowhere just doesn't make any sense to me.
The HHG with the $2 donation says we're favored but picked to be upset in the game. I haven't seen a lot of people picking the Patriots, but you're always going to get that. Next week, you're going to get the pendulum to swing back, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's going chalk right now. Everyone's picking the Seahawks. They're 4.5-point favorites or whatever it was at last check. And then next week, everyone will come around. They'll just because they get tired of talking about it. It's 2 weeks long. They'll talk themselves into, or at least for the sake of the camera, they'll talk themselves into the Patriots having a shot here. And then to Thomas Cox, and I have seen a little bit of this. Some media thinks Seattle will get blown out. I've seen that, but I don't take it seriously. I think it's people are trying to get attention. They're trying to get attention.
What is their building? What's the logical, rational explanation they come up with that?
Mike McDonald gets kidnapped before the game.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold falls into the San Francisco Bay, and we lose just all hope in that sake.
Don't diss on Drew Lock like that. Come on,
I'm not
Bryce.
dissing on Drew Lock. I'm just stating a fact. But I will say that the one thing that I've heard more and more recently is, well, this Patriots team's like the one that went up against the greatest show on turf in the 2001 Super Bowl. And if you look at it this way, they came through an NFC West, that Rams team, and they did this and they did that. It's like almost lining up to be the same thing. You got this young, up-and-coming quarterback in Drake. It's like, whoa. You also had to go through Pittsburgh and that team with that defense at that time in the AFC, which was still good. You had to go through a very well-coached Raiders team that you got the tuck rule to save you in the snow game.
Yeah.
You didn't exactly walk through Justin Herbert without an offensive line that was about the same density as Swiss cheese. Walk through a Houston team where, yes, they have a defense, but have no offense and no offensive playmakers really to help them out. And then walk into Denver in Mile High and play a quarterback that hasn't thrown a ball in over 18 months in an NFL game.
Willie McGinnis, Teddy Bruschi, Ty Law, better than any of the defensive players. Lawyer Malloy. I mean, better than any of the defensive players they have on this New England as far as their abilities at that time, too. So kind of a little bit of a different defense.
It's just a little bit. And we discredited Richard Seymour in that one, too.
Yeah, Richard, too. I mean, they had some dogs on that defense, man.
Ted Washington at nose tackle, a little bit of a different animal to deal with.
About 1,500 of you in the stream right now.
Let's go.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, folks.
On a Saturday night, right? I will say this too. I was watching this with Joe Buck the other day. Was reminding us about before Super Bowl 48 and how he and Troy went in and interviewed the Legion of Boom all together, right? Well, the three guys, Earl, Rich, and Cam. And he said he came out of that, and he and Troy looked at each other and they go, Broncos don't have a chance. That they were so intense and so focused and so amped up they just felt the energy in that room that there was no way they were going to let anyone beat him. And he said he went home, and his wife is a Bronco fan. And his wife goes, "How'd it go?" And he goes, "You're not going to like this game." I think this unit is wired that same way, and I think they're going to have that same kind of intensity and determination. We saw when we were watching a lot of the mic'd up stuff and the sound of the Hawks and all that the other day, some of the behind the scenes stuff, that to a man after that game in the post game celebration, they're getting trophies and there's confetti and they're getting awards and they're being interviewed. Every single player said, "Job's not done. Not done yet. One more to go." Not a single Patriot had that. In fact, we noticed that all the Patriots were reacting like they just won the lottery, like they couldn't believe they're there. I don't think you can be dismissive of the difference in that kind of mentality.
I really don't. I think the players talking about that instantaneously after the win, not 2 days after, not 3 days after, but right in the moment as they're celebrating. You've got Sam telling JSN, he's like, we did, this was great. He said, "One more to go." And all of those guys, like you said, a couple you saw, and I think that does speak to the mentality of this team that just understands we 1 week at a time. And they all say this. Carroll said back in the day, I think Carroll executed this back in the day with the team and the way he did this, but Mike really lives in this mode of getting these guys locked in. It's part of what he's done so well as a head coach, to get them to truly embrace every single week and to just stay on task with the next thing that's up. And I think they almost did that. You almost saw them making that transition in the celebration process. And again, back to your point, we watched the Patriots celebration and it was just a lot of, wow, wow. So it's cool, man. It's cool. And it's just a little bit of that vibe, which to me, look, it's not a bad vibe. I'd be doing the same, but I think you see the hunger and that's still existing there in this team, and Lawrence and Ernest Jones, and the intensity even after the game that still you feel right there. I didn't feel that same intensity off the Patriots on that Broncos game.
No, there's one of their young linemen, I think it might have been Will Campbell, and he was being interviewed, he was holding his kid, and like in the middle of answering a question, it like hit him, and he stopped mid-sentence and went, "Huh, we're really going."
Yeah.
Like he couldn't believe it.
And
couldn't
then you
wrap his
see a
head
guy
around
like Jaron Reed, who's literally got tears coming down because they're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah. And the first thing he starts saying is, "This isn't over. We're bringing this back. You better believe we're bringing this back."
Yeah.
That's how focused this team is. It's like, okay, another helmet goes on the stack, and they're just stacking wins on stacking wins. That's the mentality, Mike McDonald. They are loose but focused. That's the biggest thing he also says is, I want our guys to be loose but focused. And that's what you see with this team. And you got great leadership. And like we kind of went through it. We went through the exercise of who on the Patriots has been in a Super Bowl versus who on Seattle. Well, the two guys that have been on the Super Bowl in Seattle out of the current roster, Ernest Jones and Cooper Kupp. When you flip that over to the Patriots, it's a bunch of guys that, in my opinion,
they're like back of the roster guys.
They're back of the roster depth guys that didn't have to take a forefront in trying to lead a team in a Super Bowl, where Ernest Jones was a starting linebacker. Cooper Kupp was coming off the Triple Crown and being the best receiver in the NFL and had to produce for that team to win. A little bit different in the mentality you walk into this week and next week on your preparation, where the focus needs to be, and even watching some of their practice stuff that there's been clips put out. And what I've been seeing and hearing and reading is this team is as focused as they were in the NFC Championship. There hasn't been a lot of like kind of just, hey, yeah, we're in the Super Bowl. It's, hey, yeah, we're in the Super Bowl. We have a job to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think you can minimize how, even though none of the guys on this roster obviously were on the team Super Bowl 49, none of the coaches were on that coaching staff. John, front office guys, they were all here. And I don't even think the fact that it's the same opponent matters. They're all well aware of what happened the last team this was in the playoffs, or the last time this team was in the Super Bowl, and what happened, and how that permeates their history and everything that's happened since then, and how it tore apart really a potential dynasty. They're all well aware of that history, and I think they want to play a part in turning that around.
Oh, they're going to see that replay about 1,000 times this week. So
I'm already starting to get a little desensitized to it. I thought it was going to be a hard part this week. Saw an interview with Malcolm Butler the other day. He was actually very gracious. It was a pretty cool interview, actually, about the moment. Maybe this is the week that we can all move past that and process it, because I've been in total denial. I just can't watch it for the last 11 years. But we don't have a choice this week. We do not have a choice. Peter Go Hawks again with the 499er. If we get the right package on the field and they don't, should we use a hurry-up offense and try to keep them off the field, take advantage of them? We haven't seen them use a lot of tempo. They did a little bit of it the last couple of weeks. Would you like to see them do more?
Yeah, I would like to see them do more because that and the quick snap. That's the other thing you can catch New England in with their substitutions, with trying to get aligned and how they like to rotate things. You can catch them. And to be honest, the LA Rams did a really good job of that. Stafford took advantage of that numerous times where Seattle was still getting set. They were doing their adjustments. Bang, he taps the center's ass, takes the ball, and they go. The tempo thing, too, as it closes the gates. You run a play, and you have your formation. And this is where it's amazing. If Robbie Oots can play, and me and Brandon, you talked about this. If Robbie Oots can play, and you can start out in a 21 look, and then move to a 12 personnel look by him shifting to the other side as a tight end, it changes defensive linebackers' responsibilities, and you may get them in a different look and be able to take advantage of the fact Robbie Oots can run some patterns and be a viable receiving tight end out of there. It changes, or do it with Eric Saubert if you need to. That flexibility and what Clint's been doing so well of using motion and moving JSN around and Cooper Kupp and the tight ends really can cause problems for a defense that relies on substitution packages and not the fact of just having multiple flexible defensive players on the field at all times.
Yeah, you cobble it together as far as your fronts go, your personnel mixing in and out, and catch them on the cobble point of a pass rush unit, and you can run downhill, for instance, out of up-tempo. Just the type of situation I'd look to.
Question here from Daddy1239. Thanks for the $1.99 donation. Does McDaniels having experience play a huge factor? And I wonder if he's asking about actual Super Bowl experience. There's a difference dealing with the 2-week break. There's a difference with dealing with the distractions, the media day, all of that. Does that give them an edge somehow?
He doesn't have Brady.
He doesn't have Brady. He doesn't have Belichick.
Yeah, it doesn't have Belichick, doesn't have Brady, and I mean, he can't film our practices.
Wait, do we have the...
It's kind of hard when you don't know the plays that coming on. Mikey?
Right. Yeah, I like that. Mark Sanchez is here. Good luck on your upcoming trial, by the way, Mark. We really appreciate being
that's
here.
Right.
$5 donation. Thanks for doing that. I think D-Law has a good chance to be Super Bowl MVP because May scrambles a lot, which could create sacks, fumbles, or a scoop and score. Thoughts? And while I get both your guys' thoughts on this, just have you given much thought to who might be in good position to come away with the MVP?
No.
MVP for me in the Super Bowl, I got a weird feeling it's going to be K9. There's so much open running space on this defense that if you get them in bad looks, like Brandon just pointed out, with sub packages and fronts and stuff, they don't have the speed to catch him in the open field. That's a huge thing. Like, you don't have a Julian Love in the back end or a Reek or a Spoon that can actually chase the guy. You literally, if he gets through that first wave, like, good luck catching K9. Like, you remember the long run in Week 16 versus the Rams where he got through that initial front seven to start the second half, and then bang, he's gone down the sideline? I could see a couple of those happening for K9. Yeah. I think there's a chance K9 ends up being Super Bowl MVP. That's kind of where I go with the Super Bowl MVP part.
Got a favorite?
I'm much in the same way, just because I think it's just his outside zone and the speed of this defense is one that they just don't have an answer that they can just call upon and say, well, just do this. They already are going to the 3-4. That's already one of the things you pull as far as teams want to be more in 4-man fronts. So if they're pulling to 3-4, they're already pulling in going, yeah, we don't trust our personnel fully with this, so we got to go a little heavier. The only thing you can do is bring down that safety. And as we saw last 2 weeks ago against the Rams, you bring down the safety and you're in base, and now you got a Shaheed out there one-on-one because you're going to wind the other safety over there, and the safeties for the Patriots aren't that particularly top end. So he is the guy that I've kind of gone to. I think if it's not him, I could see it being a defensive player that gets a couple sacks and a strip, be it a Leonard Williams or be it a DeMarcus Lawrence. Certainly those guys are going to be turned up to the maximum in this game. I mean, you're getting everything from those guys, and you'll be able to keep them fresh enough, you're going to be able to get their maximum in this game. So I could see it being one of those two things. But K9 to me with this defense and watching a couple of games as we did last night. Yeah,
the Ravens game, you just kept saying the Ravens just kept running outside zone and running it well, 5, 6, 7 yards of carry. It's like, there it is. Outside zone.
You can just feel they don't have the speed out there. And I think Vrabel over the next couple of years will probably upgrade the speed on this defense tremendously to where it will look night and day different from where it is right now to 2 years from now.
Because he basically inherited that roster. And I think the one thing you got to look at, too, with what Vrabel wants to do, to much of what we want to do and what we have as personnel, he would love to have a DeMarcus Lawrence who can be a run-setting edge. His run-setting edges are actually relatively tiny. They're not big guys. So again,
and yet they traded
talk about last night?
White.
48. Jonathan Tavia, is it that they have?
Jonah Tavia.
They got him as an edge.
Yeah.
He's not comfortable lining up there, and he's not really comfortable being a starter who you rely on to do certain things. And there were certain things where if you look at where 48 lines up, so again, that's a number to circle on that Patriot defense. If he lines up and he's on the line, if it's in the boundary, run your zone to the boundary. It should be Sam walks up with Clint, where's 48? Because we're going to attack it when he's out there. Because when they have him there, they have a 5 tech, and then they have a 1 tech. And if you're running zone against that, you're going to kill it because you have all the leverage in the right spots to take off and just run that. And K9 will go right through there.
Tavai is essentially a will linebacker playing edge right now
Yeah.
for the Patriots. Like when we played the Patriots a year ago, that was the position he was at. And now they're flexed him over the edge, and I don't get it myself. I think it just speaks to the weakness over there as much as anything else.
Watching them last night, it kind of felt like they could use a guy like Keon White.
They could.
Probably could.
They
Yeah.
could, yeah.
Yeah.
That was an odd trade for me at the deadline.
He got in the doghouse on Vrabel for some
Yeah,
reason. And
he had
Vrabel's
to.
got a little bit of that, you know,
He
you get on
he
his
had
wrong
to.
side. And
Yeah, probably ate the wrong thing for lunch or something, and he
Yeah.
just couldn't handle it. Mark Sanchez again. Thanks, buddy. Could Jonah Coleman be a fit for the Hawks? So he was supposed to be here.
Yes.
Pulled out. Don't
Yeah.
know if it was injury related or if his agent got in his ear or whatever. We really wanted to see him here. I know he was banged up during the year. He's probably just trying to get healthy for the process. You've been telling me about Jonah Coleman for months and what a good fit he would be in this offense.
I think he'd be a really good complement to a K9 in a lot of ways. Me and Brandon kind of talked about it at Senior Bowl, where he's kind of got a little bit of that Devin Singletary to him in this back he can cut and do some things. Now, again, it'll be interesting to see what weight he comes in at, how healthy he is, because he got banged up this year a bit, where he's at in that process. I have him as a guy that could go up the board depending on how he tests to being an early round 2. I don't know if I spend the draft capital there for him. I'd rather get him late second round, early third round, and this is where I tend to lean into a Kalen Black or a Katron Allen type of guy, because there's things about them I think that might actually work better for whoever comes in as off. And the big thing I'll say about especially Black that I really like, his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. That's a huge thing. He can get out there. He can make some guys move. We saw it a little bit today at the Senior Bowl. That's where I kind of lean in that area. Like, I do like Jonah Coleman, but there's things about him where I'm like, I'm not willing to pay a steep price for Jonah Coleman.
40 times going to be important for him. 10-yard split's going to be important for him, because if he goes out like the kid that went to the Giants with Cam Scatterbo, and he does another 4.65 like Cam, or he's in the 4.6 range, I think he falls up out of that second round. And I agree with you. I think it's more high third is where you really want to be looking at with him. And I'm guessing he's going to probably run a 4.55 to 4.6 ish, maybe not 4.65, but maybe 2. I mean, that's going to be. He's not all prospects does this carry as much of this weight, but I think it will with him.
Thomas Cox chiming in with another one and another donation. Appreciate it. Who's your Robbie Oots Horton type player? So day 3 guy that you like. And right now the Seahawks only have 1 pick on day 3, and that's in the 6th round.
This is a good one. Go ahead, Brandon, if you got one.
Well, if he was to dip into, 4th, 5th round range, if I can go into kind of that territory, because this draft right now is one where you get into the 5th round, and you're dropping off of an absolute cliff, a Looney Tunes cliff. It's gone.
Do you try to turn that 6 into a next year 7? Like, do you do one of those?
No, because you're probably going to find guys that can be special team fits or what you're tending to look for in day 3 anyway. You're not going to find starters day 3, really. I do think Darrell Jackson Jr. could be an interesting guy if they ever have an inkling of wanting to try to maybe move a little bit of Murphy up out of the 1 tech into the future or relieve him some of those snaps. I think Jackson is an upgrade over what you have with the Brandon Peely. But has he done enough with what he done in the Shrine Bowl? He didn't play in this game. He came in for like 1 practice. It kind of leads me to believe that maybe he's into sort of that day 2. So it does get a little tough to find the Horton guy, because part of the reason you got Horton, part of the reason you got Riley Mills, had to do with how good that draft really was, how deep that draft was. And this one just doesn't, to me, fit, maybe into that same level. And so I am a little bit of a struggle there in kind of finding guys in that day that I could give you a name, but I don't have a lot of faith that that guy's going to necessarily be of equivalent prospect ability.
Yeah.
And honestly, like day 3, that 6th round pick, it's being all we have right now on day 3. Like, I could see that be the running back pick. Like, you don't take a guy high, especially if you re-sign Walker, you bring him back, and you think you're going to get Charbonnet back early in the season. Well, there's going to be depth there. There's going to be guys available in the 6th
Singleton.
round.
I guess Singleton would be the guy we mentioned.
Especially coming off the injury now, if that costs him the process a little bit.
Yeah, breaks his foot. Probably a 3rd round guy. Breaks his foot now. What do we have with Horton? Why did we get Horton last year? Injury concerns. Yep. So maybe that would be your 5th rounder.
Yeah, absolutely. I like it. Sloby One Kenobi, $1.99 donation. I said it last year. What about John Gruden as offensive coordinator? Doesn't seem like a personality fit with Mike Macdonald.
Yeah.
No, I think he's a little too over the top. I love John's offense. It's actually kind of coming back in the NFL. A lot of what he likes to do.
Spider 2, why banana?
Spider 2, why banana? Or Widow, why 2 banana? But there's things about his offense that are now coming back into the game. Even the under center empty sets, which we've seen Clint run a little bit this year with motion in the back out or back in. But the thing I'll say is his personality just doesn't jive with Mike. And I don't know if John wants to be just an OC. I think if John gets another opportunity, he wants to be a head coach. And I don't blame him. Like, he kind of, with the whatever happened there in Vegas and the NFL and Snyder and all that stuff, like, it's one of those things where I wonder, like, if he comes back, is it not going to be for a head coaching job with a more ready roster?
Well, and I feel like even though I think he got a victory in court recently, I think they threw some stuff out, but it's not done. And I think as long as that is still pending, I think it's going to be hard for anyone to probably hire him in the league. It's kind of the same thing that Brian Flores had to deal with there for a few years.
I'll throw a name back at you guys. The New York Jets just interviewed him. What about if we bring back Darrell Bevel?
Darrell Bevel, baby.
I just wanted to throw this at Brandon.
No. Please, no.
Oh, boy. Somebody suggested to me last night that, hey, bring Shane Waldron back. And I think
gosh, that's even worse.
Pretty sure they were impaired.
Yeah, that's the
Hey, we know this guy, Michael Thompson. Thanks for the donation. He says, hey, dweebs. My friend got Seahawks Pats at 40-1 odds a couple of months ago after both their hot starts.
That is nice.
Man.
Hopefully you put some money on that.
Yeah, what's the return on that? Adjust the Gamer, $4.99 donation. Very nice. Here we go. Let's see. We go. Oh, gotta hold it down. There we go. Nice. Okay. We're focused on the Super Bowl 100%. You think Robert Kraft report was true or false? I don't think it's true, but interesting this was put out there. Again, we did cover this earlier, but ton of respect for Seth Wickersham and Brady Henderson. This story was not built just on the assumption that Robert Kraft leaked this for some sort of distraction purposes. The Washington Post, an hour after this story came out, followed it up with their own story. They're not just running with this based on one source. They're getting other people giving them the same indications that this is happening, or they don't run with it.
And it's my understanding too that he serves as some sort of role within the committee that's overseeing the blah 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 for the initial this. So he also would be in on that and having the ear on the ground as far as being here. And that the first time that sparks, he's going to be right there on it. And this just makes, to me, this where there's some sparks, there's a little bit of fire. Where there's smoke, there's fire. To me, on this one.
Daniel Bailey, 9049 with the $1.99 donation. How likely do you think it is Shanahan wins Coach of the Year? Who do you guys think wins that award? I mean, he'd be. There's 5 or 6 deserving coaches this year, and he's certainly one of them. What he did with that team, with the number of significant players that got injured and missed most, if not all, of the season, it's remarkable.
I will say this. I think the 2 losses to Seattle really hurt that case because you got blown out.
Well, only one would count. They vote on these awards before the playoffs.
And I would say even the one in San Francisco, like, you got shut down outside of one drive.
Yeah.
And even your one other game against Seattle, and again, I'm using Seattle's reference, it wasn't that great. Yes, he survived, but when I look at what Mike Macdonald did in 2 years, and I look even with what Mike Vrabel did with New England, they are both playing in the Super Bowl and finished as 1 and 2 seeds in their respective conferences. I tend to lead to one of those two probably getting it.
Yeah. I mean, it's to me a flip a coin thing.
Yeah.
It's just like a 4-sided coin you can flip, and anyone that comes up, you could make a strong case as to them, deserving it. So,
Vrabel's certainly deserving. The guy that brought his team from the depths usually wins this thing, but I feel like if he does, it would be yet another case of East Coast bias. They played the easiest schedule in not just this year, but in quite some time, in many years going back. They played the easiest schedule. Hopefully what McDonald did at the end of the year, winning those 8 straight regular season games, and then getting the monkey off his back and beating the Rams week 16 the way that they did, and then beating San Francisco in Week 18, to your point, convincingly as hot as that offense was. Hopefully that's enough to tip it. But
I agree. We didn't confirm that last stone. I just want to verify. We do think that the story is real. We think that there's something to this. Does it mean the sale's impending like tomorrow? No, but does it mean that it's coming down the line much sooner than later based on the fact that the story's starting to break? Yes.
And again, the statement from the trust was the team is not for sale. It will be at some point in the future. We're focused on the Super Bowl. They didn't say it's not going to be. They didn't say it's not going to be for a long time. But that's the telephone game, right?
And this
that's what it morphs into.
Politicians do this game all the time, right? I am not currently ... And it's like, well, currently.
I did not have sex with that woman.
But this is what I'll say about it too.
What do you mean by is?
What do you mean by the?
But the other thing I'll say about this, these deals take a year sometimes to get done.
Yeah.
Right? So Jody Allen and the Falcon Group and the Trust may still own the Seahawks, and we may win another Super Bowl next year with Jody Allen still theoretically being the owner of the Seattle Seahawks, and then we come into the 2027 and it finalizes. Or it finalizes late next year. Like, I don't expect this to be like, hey, Super Bowl ends, they start having conversations, and Jody Allen's out as owner of the Seahawks because she sells the team by middle of February. That's not how these things are going to work. I think this is going to go for a bit of time, because part of it too is you're going to, especially John Schneider and that, Chuck Arnold and that group, they're going to want to know what they're going to have for resources and what type of owner come free agency. Because a lot of your contracts, to Brandon's point with escrow and everything being involved, you kind of need to know where that money's going to be going and how it's going to be allocated. And do they have the power? Because, again, say they want to go after Crosby. Just say and make that trade and throw all that and that money and whatever else you got to do. Well, is Jody signing off on this, or is it the new owner signing off on this kind of thing?
Yeah. We got Peter Go Hawks again. He's got his MVP vote. He says, I hope Woolen gets it. He needs it. He needs it to make himself more money in free agency. Is that why he needs it?
If he goes out and gets if he got 2 interceptions, you guys remember the Dallas Cowboys? Brown in that Super Bowl.
Larry Brown.
He parlayed that into a contract.
And he didn't have Woolen's history as far as play goes. So
Larry Brown.
To your point, Peter, if he goes out and does that, you're talking about a guy that could earn himself a $20 million payday. If he were to get 2 interceptions, you better believe he could. I don't think he's getting that much in, but eventually I think it's 14, 15, but that's that kind of effect a game like this could have.
So, small thing, Jordan Schultz just posted 14 minutes ago. The Raiders just wrapped up second interview with OC Clint McDonald. Was told Kubiak, sorry, Clint McDonald. With Kubiak, it went well. So I think
I'll tell you, he's going to get this job, and I have to admit that I was wrong. I've been saying all season long that I thought his lack of personality and dynamic communication skills would kind of hold him back when it came to interviews. We watched some tape that you found this morning, some highlights of him from his Minnesota days and his Denver days. Actually,
Kentucky days when he was at University of Kentucky.
Yeah, and he was, but also when he was a wide receivers coach.
So he was wide receiver coach at the University in Kentucky. I actually retweeted it and put it out there, and it's in my Discord. And he was also the quarterback coach in Minnesota. And totally different guy.
You watch him coaching, and it is. I had to peek because I heard it, and I thought that's not Clint Kubiak. So yeah, he's just a guy that doesn't like standing behind the podium.
Well, and you would have been right, too, if it had been just the normal amount of teams that fired coaches this year rather than a third of the freaking league.
Yeah, true. Let's see. Michael Thompson, again, may have missed it earlier, but how do you think Mike McDonald will handle May's rushing ability, contain, spy, heavy pressure, forcing him to his left? They've done well against mobile quarterbacks because they are so disciplined in how they rush the edges, right?
Yeah. You want me to start?
You go for it. I'll piggyback.
Yeah, you'll be able to bum on this one. All right, so first off with Drake May, mobile quarterback. It's a good news situation on the front of this, though. His mobility is basically going to be on climbing to the front side of the pocket. He's not a pirouette, go out the backside kind of dude by and large. So you can kind of count on where he's going to try to run when he's going to run. The Seahawks do not do spies, just like they don't do double coverage. So that's out the window. What they've utilized, and they did this great with Kyler Murray especially, and they've been very good at most mobile quarterbacks, is the stack boxes and some of the simulated pressures and the way that not only do you have the mush rush in effect, but you almost create two different lanes to the quarterback with the pass rush, where it's just get upfield with the outside lanes, get upfield with the B gap lanes, and then have an ability to something in the plan stages to then catch him, almost like you're sort of baiting the trap, setting him up to climb, and then you've got the trap that springs on him as soon as he gets up around the line of scrimmage. I would expect them to do something like that. We did this at Brock too, in the second game against Brock. I think 3 of the sacks in that game, Derek Hall, Uchenna Nwosu, Jaron Reed, all when he was stepping up in the pocket, and that's them rushing with those kind of lanes. You just think the guy's going up, rather than being twitchy out, you're just taking a straight lane up, defensive tackle's taking a straight lane up, and you're controlling your gap integrity through all of that. And so you're kind of forcing him where you want him to run. And yes, he wants to run the ball a lot. Yes, he will run the ball a lot. I don't think we got to spy him, though, to get it done.
No, and that's one thing you've seen with Mike McDonald's defenses this year. They don't spy. Even Cam Ward didn't really get a spy, and he was probably the quarterback that actually hurt us the most with his legs. I know some people throw Bryce Young into that conversation. Bryce Young was running for his life just to get away from the pocket and try and find a pass downfield to get the ball to a receiver. But with those contained rush lanes, and this is where we talk about some of the guys we talked about in the draft process and what Tank Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu, and Derek Hall do so well, and especially in the interior, Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams, is as a quarterback, I don't like that. I want you to dictate early where you're going. If I know rushers are just going to bend and aim for my deep shoulder at the back of the pocket, great, because I know I can get up and then I can get out. If I have them just come up the field in straight lanes and they're basically reading me and where I'm going and they can turn the offensive lineman just based by where their leverage play is, you can collapse a pocket sideways on one side and still have your contain coming this way. And now I'm a rabbit and I can't get out, because if I try and go out the back door, someone's going to slam it closed real quick. And if I go out the front, it's just going to cave in on me. So now it forces you as a quarterback to get rid of the ball at times you don't want to.
Yeah. Because you can't throw it away from within the pocket.
Michael with another question. Patriots starting nickel, Marcus Jones, checks in at 5'8" and 188 pounds. We play those condensed splits. We rotate a bunch of guys in through the slot. Cooper Kupp plays in there sometimes. We've seen Jake Bobo have a bigger role. Obviously, he had the touchdown in the NFC Championship game. Does that feel like a matchup that we could exploit?
I mean, this is why they got to be in base, right? Like, this is why they can't go live in nickel against us in 12 personnel, and that they're going to have to go to their base defenses because he's 5'8". That ain't Nicky. That's pretty far from Nicky Minwari.
Yeah,
Nicky Minwari's a giant compared to this guy.
Yeah.
And look, he's a decent cover guy.
I'm taller than Marcus Jones.
I don't think he's anything special. You are, exactly. I don't think he's anything special as a tackler necessarily, but he's your typical kind of nickel, a little bit of twitchiness to him. But a guy like Cooper Kupp after the catch, can he bring him to the ground? A guy, if they're out in nickel, I got 12 personnel if they dare to do that? Am I going to have Sam adjusting to the run
in run support? Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing too with, again, what Clint does so well with his motion. You come out in 11 personnel, say we are in it, and now you slide A.J. Barner out. Is Marcus Jones really going to be able to handle A.J. Barner in the slot? Yeah. No, A.J. Barner's just going to bully him.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you guys feel about Will Campbell? He's a top 5 pick. There was a lot of question coming out about his arm length and whether he'd be able to stick at tackle. The Patriots put him at left tackle and left him there. There's enough reps on tape that he hasn't done enough, certainly, to move past the arm length questions. Right? He's a guy you can get.
He was better before the injury.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been the same since after the injury. The arm length thing is one that week in and week out is going to show, to your point, up or not, kind of based upon the type of edge rushers you have going up against you, and not just merely the quality, but do they have the length? If I'm an edge rusher with, let's say, 32.5-inch arms, and he's 32.5 too, I think.
Yeah, he's got.
So there's a lot of those edge rushers that are out there that it's match for match at that point. It's the guys where it gets to 34 and a half, and you got 2 full inches you're off, kind of like DeMarcus Lawrence or
Looking
Hall.
Up Seahawks arm lengths.
Yeah, Hall and DeMarcus Lawrence especially is 2 guys in this edge group who they get their arms on him. He can't. It's like the old thing: if you got your little brother and you're a bigger dude, and you get your hands on him, and he can't get his hands on you, or at least can't control you with his hands in the way you can control him. And because of, like he talked about, our pass rushers, the way we rush, it's not trying to get to an edge and dip and dip. It is all from the rip. I'm going to hit you with the bull rush and back you down. So it's really worst case scenario for Campbell, because he's going to get locked out with longer arms, and there's not a lot he's going to be able to do about it. And he does not have enough of the grown man strength at 22 years old, wherever it is, to be able to help against a 34-year-old DeMarcus Lawrence, who's ungodly strong. I just think it's a horrible mismatch for
So
him.
here's some stats on Will Campbell from this season. So he gave up 5 sacks, 64th rank out of tackles. He gave up 5 hits, 55th rank out of tackles in the NFL. Total pressures allowed, 26, 43rd in the NFL.
And how many games did he
How
miss?
many games did he miss?
Exactly, and he missed this year, I
At
believe.
least 4.
Let's see. He was out. Will Campbell, where are we here? Let's pull this up here. So he was, if it was show me, snaps by position. So again, he played in total 973 snaps this year, but he missed weeks 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
There you
There we
go.
go.
He missed
So
5 weeks, and he had
5 weeks, and that's where he ranked out as a tackle. That's a problem. And what are you going to do now? Are you going to keep a tight end in? Hunter Henry's not exactly a great blocking tight end.
No.
So what do? Keep him in to chip and help? You need as many guys out in your concepts for Drake May to have a chance to complete a pass.
That's right.
So Ian Rappaport reporting that the Raiders, again, following up that earlier report, has completed a second interview with Clint Kubiak for their head coach opening. The Cardinals are next.
Yeah,
So
we'll see.
he's going to go through with the Cardinals meeting, which is interesting because the thought was he was really only taking that meeting to apply pressure to the Raiders.
That's a little weird.
Yeah.
If he takes that meeting with the Cardinals, it changes my opinion.
It does mine too. Yeah, it does mine too. I almost start to wonder if he's doing like a little bit of like preparing for the interview process for ahead of time and mastering down questions to be asked and his spiel and all of that a little bit at that point. Because like, what's left to ponder at this point? What's left to find? Like the Raiders lowballing you? Like,
Yeah.
If you got to the second interview 2 nights in a row, you met with the guy.
Yeah. You know
This
numbers.
is-
numbers
but-
have been discussed. You
but
know
this
exactly what
does-
they're
if
offering.
Maybe this is why he took the job back with Ohio State.
Yeah.
Is Clint's like, yeah, Mike, no.
Yeah.
I sat with Mark Davis
I mean,
last
hey,
night, and Mike's like, enough said, bro.
I think we're
Enough said."
all trying to hold on to some semblance of hope.
Well-
And again, I feel like every time we talk about this, we have to mention kind of the elephant in the room, which is, I know because I've heard from a bunch of you that like we get all the logical reasons that it's dumb to take a head coaching job with the Raiders, right? Because the best indicator of future performance is past performance, and the Raiders have fired 5 head coaches in the last 6 years. Very unstable organization. And you're in a division with Andy Reid and Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh. All of those reasons make sense. But at the end of the day, and because he's the last guy standing, he has all the leverage in the world. First-year head coaches now, Ben Johnson got like $12 million last year. There's some speculation that Kubiak, some people feel like he could get as much as 15, and it's fully guaranteed. You give him a 5-year, $75 million contract. That's a whole lot of reasons to look past some misgivings about how they've run their organization.
Especially if they give you assurances, they'll give you the extra time.
And coaches think differently. I tell people this all the time too. Coaches don't look at it the way we look at it. They think, how can I turn this around? Because they have supreme confidence in their ability to do just that.
Yeah, especially if the Raiders give them the right answers as far as we're going to do this right and not fast.
And it's not just the first pick in the draft. It's the first pick in every round. It's just the advantages that gives you going through a class, especially one that's considered to be a little bit weak. It's, I could see it. I think we're still holding out some hope, though, that until it's over, it ain't over.
So here's the one thing, though. If you go and look back at Ben Johnson's year that he didn't take a job, he had multiple interviews with multiple teams. Carolina, Atlanta, Los Angeles, the Commanders, even had interest from the Raiders and all that kind of stuff at that point. He then, after multiple interviews, withdrew himself. Like, it's like he, to Brandon's point, went through that process to figure out, hey, how do I answer these questions? How do I sell myself the best? All those kind of things. Came back for another year. Then when the job that most desired to him came available, the Chicago job at that point, he jumped on it.
Mark Sanchez, if K9 gets Super Bowl MVP, is he gone? I think running backs, the market for running backs and what they cost is so defined that I don't think it matters. It is what it is. They know exactly what it's going to cost to get him. Maybe there's a little bit of wiggle room or leeway if he hits the market. Maybe there's a little difference of what he would get in the open market versus whether he wants to stay.
Can I tell you what I think the thing with this is that we just found out the cap's going to go up another $20 million. Sorry to interrupt you.
Almost 30.
Almost $30 million. The franchise tag for a running back's about $13 million. I mean, it's like if there's not a no-brainer decision that I can see more on this roster, and let's say Walker squawks. We won't franchise you a second year. You're a street free agent after this year. You've been able to get players like Jadeveon Clowney had this deal with the Texans, so there's a baseline for this. Okay, he's like that. Can I move him in a draft with maybe not the kind of dynamic talent at the running back position and even get a late second-round pick for Walker at that point? Is that a possibility?
The Seahawks have franchised and traded a guy before.
Frank Clark. You maximize the returns back off Frank in doing that approach. So I just don't see them in a position at this point going, it's okay, go test the market. Yeah, we'll be fine. We got 2 guys coming off torn ACLs and no answers behind them. But no, I'm sure we'll be fine and about an average running back draft. I can't see it.
I think, again, I've said this for a while. I feel like his contract will be in the range of what Aaron Jones and Kyron Williams were. Probably maybe a little higher.
About 11, 5, 12, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a 2-year deal, so he can still hit the market again if he has 2 more good years prior to 30, and then you can see where he goes from there. And then if that means you take one of the running backs we talked about in this year's draft, you still take a Black, you still take an Allen, or one of these guys that can come in and still run the scheme. You set yourself up for better success than, hey, yeah, K9, go test the market, see what your value's going to be like, come back and talk to us when we try and figure out that we're going to have to overpay like crazy for you, rather than getting this deal done now and getting that. Because I think the one thing for K9 now that he understands this run scheme system, he understands how it works. We've seen a different K9 over the back half of the season. He's hitting the hole differently.
This is the guy we wanted to see.
And I'm going to be honest, I think his best run of his career, most people point to that Chargers sweeping around the edge and he's gone, or even in week 16. His best run was in the NFC Championship game, where he is dead to right in the hole with a middle linebacker who is not being blocked, and he basically teleports from right in front of the guy to 2 steps to his left and then is gone for like 7 or 8 yards. And yeah, it didn't go for a touchdown. That's special talent. To be able to do that with an NFL linebacker in a hole without him being held on by somebody, it's just you and him, and you've got to make him miss. That's something you don't get. Zach Charbonnet doesn't make him miss.
No.
Yeah. I have to say this because we're in Mobile, Alabama, and I saw him here last year, and so it's on my mind. But we'd feel a whole lot better about this situation, wouldn't we, if Damian Martinez became was who we thought he was going to be? We talked the other day while we were out at practice with someone who was asking about him, just like about what a mystery that whole thing was. He just seemed like a completely different player than the guy that we watched.
Well, it makes sense, too, where you looked at the talent of him and you said, man, the 7th-round pick, that just doesn't fit to what I saw on tape with him in Miami and Oregon State. And this explains the NFL evaluators know stuff, and they understand the depths of this, and they tend to be pretty right on this type of stuff when guys slot that far. They're not that dumb about it, where it's like, what were they thinking? It's like, well, they probably had a good reason.
The HG, the $2 donation. Thank you for that. You're not the first one to think of this, but Brando for OC. Oh, it was Bryce for OC. So nobody thinks I can call plays apparently, but Brando can.
I got it.
What about you, Brandon?
What kind of scheme would you be? Shanahan.
I'll bring him on my quarterback coach.
Would you be Shanahan? Now Bryce would need a 12th guy on the field.
I'd be outside zone all day. Yeah, outside zone. I'd be running play action at the highest rate in the NFL. I'd be a lot of boots and rollouts.
I'm an air raid guy, so nobody
me and Brandon align in this West Coast scheme here.
Yeah, we're is it? I told you 7 steps.
One hitch.
Me, I would swing my sword. Yeah, I would hire Luke Falk as my quarterback coach, and we'd be off and running. Yeah. Mark Sanchez though says I'll be offensive coordinator. I mean, you played quarterback in the league, so
USC ties to Sam Darnold. It's all there.
I see the plan. I see the vision.
Are there any wild cards, any names that we haven't talked about, that could come out of the woodwork? Because sometimes that's how these things go. Like a Thomas Brown, who I think they interviewed 2 years ago. Tolzien, who we saw at dinner the other night. He's quarterback coach of the Saints right now.
Offensive coordinator at the Senior Bowl.
Oh, he is a coordinator, but he can't. Lateral move though. Can't hire him.
No, but he was at Senior Bowl. He is just the quarterback coach for the Saints.
That's right.
Because Kellen Moore calls all their plays and everything.
I thought Nussmeier was a quarterback coach.
No, he's the offensive coordinator.
Oh, okay. Doug, father of Garrett.
And again, he's got ties back to Mike McCarthy in Green Bay, and Mike McCarthy's kind of given him a stamp of approval, which we know with John Schneider always carries some weight, is what McCarthy thinks, and guys that he's worked with in the past through Green Bay and stuff, he really does hold that in high esteem. Think about Brian Schottenheimer. Yeah. He worked with Marty for years. Brian got the OC job, and we were all sitting there going, we really just went from Darrell Bevel to Brian Schottenheimer. Worked out for a few years. Scott Tolzien could be a guy.
Just checking Twitter here, just in case we get any breaking news. I don't want to be talking about OC candidates and then not end up with one. And I still think at the end of the day, look, they when this happens, let's say we find out tomorrow that Clint Kubiak's going to be the next coach of the Raiders. Seahawks then can't actually interview anyone this week, but they can certainly get their ducks in a row. And you know, you gotta fulfill the Rooney Rule still. But with coordinators, it's only one candidate, so they'll interview Anthony Lynn, right? Like everybody else. I still feel like Mike Kafka is going to be involved in the process at some point. Like they interviewed him twice for head coach, and then after they hired Mike McDonald, they tried to go back again and interview him for OC, and Daboll blocked it. They liked him so much they went back to the well 3 times. I don't know. Could that much change in 2 years? Maybe it's a different scheme now than.
I just can't see the RPO stuff that he's been running. He continued to run it with Jackson Dart, so it's not like he was like, well, yeah, Daniel Jones is all you could run Daniel with. Like you could have brought Jackson in and developed him as a quarterback. I just say this quite plainly. You brought Jackson in and aided in getting him broken this year because you were busy saving your job, not calling the best game plan from his perspective. And to that would have me out on the guy just on that alone.
Here's an interesting Husky tie. Mark Sanchez asking about Mark Brunell from the Lions as OC.
So I remember last year when they were talking about the whole OC thing in Detroit after Angstrom left and Ben Johnson left. They did talk about Brunell, but it sounds like he doesn't actually want to be an offensive coordinator. He's okay being a quarterback coach. So I don't see him all of a sudden switching.
He must have paid his way out of all the financial trouble he was in a few years ago. Then,
maybe. You'd
think he'd want more than quarterback coach money.
Here's another name. I'm just going to throw it. Is Aaron? I think it's Stenovich.
Stenovich from
who they looked
Packers.
at last year from the Packers, who's their offensive
they did
coordinator.
interview him.
He could be another guy that they potentially go and have a run at again. Maybe
again, it would have to be a thing where LaFleur's willing to let him go so he can go call plays. I don't know, if he's that kind of guy or if he's going to be petty like Shanahan and like block his guy's career arc. Because I'm telling you, wouldn't the best place to pivot if he was available be to Clay?
Oh, I'm sure.
Like you wouldn't even have to change some of the nameplates in the office.
Well, I think LaFleur would be the same way. I mean, either of those two, he'd love it if he could just have his druthers about him. I'm sure he'd pick either of those two guys.
Maybe a guy like, again, if you're going to take a risk on someone who hasn't called plays before, and some people are surprised he didn't get one of the head coaching jobs because he got a bunch of interviews and everyone raved about that. Nate Scheelhaus, who is the passing game coordinator for the Rams. Now that would be a promotion. So if you like a guy like that, you could rate another guy. But we did that. We did that with Shane Walter and it didn't work out great. So I don't know if the optics on that would be as good as we would want them to.
And it's not just he hasn't called, it says he's a baby. It's like
he really is. He was just playing college football a couple of years ago.
I just go, man, untested and that young, like if I'm going to go untested, give me guys like 40 who's been just chomping at the bit, waiting for his opportunity for 8 years, like grinding away. Yeah, I'd much rather that, I think.
Yeah. Tony Bag of Donuts with the $50 dono. Thanks for stepping up, man. Really hit it. Boom. Yeah. There we go.
Oh, Tony. Thank you, man.
And now I want a donut. He says we're at the pinnacle of Hawks content between you three plus Mookie and Nemhauser, Staten, Simmons, Brandon Nelson. Life is good for Hawks fans. Thank you for all you do. We talk about this all the time, you guys, and we really, really take this to heart, and we mean this. We feel fortunate to be part of a Seahawks content creator community that, by and large, from top to bottom, is full of really cool people and people that always treat us well, and we go on each other's shows, and I would shout out the guys from Seahawkers Pod and Adam and Brandon and Clinton, the guys from Seahawks Playbook Podcast, Keith and Bill. There's guys from overseas that are doing it that we really like. There's a lot of people, and we see it. While we're here, we see a lot of creators, and then we always try to find people from other organizations and teams to talk to about previews and things like that. Not every team has 8, 9, 10 full-time content creators that cover their team, that put out just the quality that I think the Seahawks content creators do. And so I think you're fortunate. It's more competition for us, but it also kind of motivates us, pushes us, keeps us on our toes, and I think we're really fortunate. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find another team out of the other 31 in this league that have as many people doing it that put out such good quality content.
I might have my interactions around Table Sports, and a lot of people that do their various content creations in their own little nebulous worlds within the regions of this country. And I think we've got guys that work as hard as anybody out there to just provide great content, no drama, not trying to stir a pot, not trying to get you clickbaity. I just think these are guys that just want to put in good, honest, hard work and present you guys with great content. And it's universal throughout this community, and I really appreciate about it.
We got another one here from Addis the Gamer. $1.99, thank you. Boom. Whatever happens, just go win the Super Bowl. That would certainly ease any pain. Because, you lose on Sunday. Kubiak leaves for Vegas on Monday. That's a much, much tougher blow.
Seahawks sold on Tuesday.
Don't even.
and then you find out Benton's going with him. Like
Ben Wednesday.
Just win the chip, win the Lombardi. You can take the whole goddamn staff. We'll figure it out.
Amen. Just get this win. I mean, we're young. We're third youngest. We think this is going to be forever. But this is why we've said savor this experience, because you don't know when you're going to get back here. You've got the greatest conditions set up in front of you right now to go win this game, perhaps as much as any Super Bowl that. How long would we have to go back, guys, to think of a Super Bowl with this kind of mismatch walking into it? Not winning in a blowout, but walking into it with like a mismatch like this.
None of us thought 48 was going to go the way that it did. Not with that offense and all the guys they had over there. And so no, I never. I've had to guard myself against feeling like it's inevitable.
Yeah, I myself, especially watching the tape last night. I'm just looking over at Bryce, and we're looking at each other. We're just kind of shrugging and going, I mean.
At the end of the day, and somebody mentioned earlier that there are some people predicting a blowout. I don't think those people really believe that. I think they're just doing it to create attention and excitement. I think of all the potential outcomes of the game, that's the least likely. I just don't think the Patriots are capable of blowing out the Seahawks, even if we turn the ball over a few times. Like, I just don't. You look at the teams physically and how they match up. And then, you talk about how they're playing lately and how hot the Seahawks have been and how they've really dialed things in. And I just don't see it. I think the only way the Patriots win is if we go out and lay a complete egg. And I just don't think this team's wired that way. I'm not even worried about Kubiak being distracted, because he just seems like a guy that's so laser focused. He's just not going to allow that to happen once he turns his attention to the game.
I agree with you. I don't see how they blow them out. We've had how many games this year that we've lost the turnover war and we didn't get blow out? And we had a lot of times
Week 11 is the
dominated.
greatest example against the best team in the league at that point.
Yeah. If it's not happened throughout this year, why it would happen in this random game to me would just be completely shocking.
I just want to point out, a lot of Patriot fans out there are saying, hey, they've played 3 playoff games. We've only played 2. They're more experienced on how to handle the playoff pressure than we are.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, that's the most recent argument I've seen, and I'm like, we also finished as the number 1 seed in our conference, so we didn't have to play.
That's almost as relevant as the person who tweeted out today Sam Darnold's history against the New England Patriots.
Because when he was playing with the Jets, it totally mattered with those teams, with Adam Gase calling plays.
0-4 against the Patriots. Well,
hey, there's an OC candidate. Do we bring in Adam Gase?
Oh, God.
I'm just throwing it at the wall.
That'd be a funny joke for Mike to pull off on him.
Oh, God.
He's got a prank waiting to happen on Sam if this goes down.
I just couldn't handle the eyes.
That would allow Sam to see ghosts again as Adam Gase walking through.
He is the ghost. I mean, we did talk about Matt Nagy the other day, and while he might fit from he's never going to be hired as a head coach again perspective, and it's just not a schematic, not a stylistic fit.
No.
You don't think he could adapt to that?
It's not in his DNA. If you look at what he did with Trubisky in Chicago.
Okay.
And why do you want to take a coach? The first thing you're saying, can he adapt to this?
Yeah.
That's just think about that. Like it's
Arthur Smith does. He adapts his offense to what he has on hand. He's done it well.
He's an outside zone guy.
He's been an outside zone guy from day one with him. And so the thing I look at with Nagy is you go back to those Chicago teams and Trubisky, who at that point you have a rookie quarterback. You're trying to protect him a little bit, run the football. He never stayed patient with it. He put too many games on Trubisky, and that's what ultimately was his undoing there. And let's be honest here. We're talking about a guy that Andy Reid is basically said, okay, go look for head coaching jobs. And then Eric Bieniemy comes available and, hey, I hired Eric. Sorry, you don't have a job anymore. See you later. If Andy Reid isn't willing to have you back.
He even came out a couple days ago and doubled down on it, almost to try and save face, make themselves look better. Like, man, I can't believe he didn't get one of these jobs. It was just, the whole thing was weird.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. If it's an internal hire and we've kind of pivoted on this. I just always assumed it would be Janoko because he called plays in the mock game, and they let him call plays in one of the preseason games. But we've come to think it might be out, and just because of some of the comments McDonald's made and his involvement in the running game. Let's say it's Justin Outen. Do you think at that point, if it's anyone internally, do you think at that point the Seahawks play hardball with John Benton and block Kubiak's attempts to take him with him?
I don't think so, because I just don't think there's a rich track history of this type of situation where a coach has been the responsible party for bringing these guys in, and then now he gets a head coaching job, and you'll be like, no, they belong to us.
Yeah.
It's kind of inherently what's at the heart of that. And I think Seahawks organization doesn't tend to be a cold-blooded one like that. There are organizations that will maybe do that, but they're not a dime a dozen, and they're not everybody across the sport. And I don't think that they would operate in that same manner. They seem more pro allowing people to go where they want to go.
But man, that process last year to bring these guys in, it was about more than Kubiak, and it was about fixing the offensive line and that scheme. And Benton was a big part of that. And he and Kubiak he's only gone with him once. It's not like he's gone to every stop. He wasn't with him in Minnesota. He wasn't with him in Denver. I just wonder at a certain point, like, you can be the nice guy, right? But you also have to preserve what you've built. And how many good offensive line coaches are available today?
How much do you want to keep an offensive line coach here who doesn't want to be here and wants to go with the other guy?
Yeah, that's probably what it comes down to, though. And that's, yeah, I suppose if John Benton says, I want to go rebuild yet another offense.
I mean, I'm with you on give him a bump in salary.
Yeah.
Wrap your arms around him.
But if he wants to go, you have to let him go.
I'm with you on this stuff. Like, tell Arthur Smith you got to inherit this guy, right? Like, Arthur Smith's O-line coach from Pittsburgh just went somewhere else.
Buffalo.
So you could easily tell Arthur, hey, you're getting it. So if there's any part of him willing to stay, I'm with you 100% on do all you can to keep him. But if he comes back to you and he's like, look, I got a connection with the family and I like Clint.
I wasn't thinking about that angle.
Here's an interesting nugget I just got a text from. Clint is going to meet with Arizona tomorrow. He is going to do that. Tomorrow. Okay. He is going to meet with Arizona tomorrow. He is going to do that. And then the feeling is he is going to actually sit down and sort through everything. There has been no confirmation of any sort of deal going through verbally or anything underneath the table. Was
this the same source that told you it's done a couple of days ago?
No, this is not that same source. This is a different source.
Okay. All right.
Interesting. Hard to break. And the one tough part about making this relation to Ben Johnson is that all kind of occurred after they were out of things. And that he's doing this while they are still in the thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now he has to pivot. He goes right into Super Bowl week, and they may go win it, and there's confetti and the whole thing. Why the hell would I want to leave this right now?
This leads back into the initial thing that we had heard and you had heard from kind of Albert Breer when we were here at Senior Bowl of he's very much torn in what he's going to do. I think this leads into two things from what I'm kind of piecing together and trying to read through these tea leaves is a little bit to Brandon's point of he's prepping himself in case he does want one of these jobs, maybe even next year. What is this process like? He's never been through it before, ever, right? Like, we're talking about a guy that's consistently been let go of his jobs because of the coaching staff gets fired. He hasn't had a lot of consistency, so he's never had the opportunity to run an offense this successfully and get all this attention. And then to the other part of it is, do I want to leave this?
Yeah.
Do I want to leave with everything going on? Do I really want to leave this situation? So to take the meeting with Arizona, you're not taking that meeting just to be like, hey guys, I'll come talk to you a little bit because I feel bad for you. It's probably a legitimate
but you would take it to give some leverage and put the screws
whole process.
To the
so this is where it's interesting because I believe to Brandon's point, why would you bother if you're going to take the Raiders job? Even talk. That'd be hey, you know what? We'd hear the Cardinals interview is canceled.
It's a great point. If the news right now was that he's withdrawing from that interview tomorrow, we would know what's happening.
We would know what's happening. So
absolutely. Another one from Tony Bag of Donuts. Forgot about this too. Forgot about our boy Corbin over at Locked On Seahawks.
Let's go.
Yeah.
And Rob. Those guys do great work. I'm telling you, I just don't think there's another team in the league that has the roster of quality content creators.
We should do a massive convention one year with all of us together.
Giant crossover.
Just a giant crossover panel.
It would look like a COVID Zoom with
I think the Hawks did that a couple of years ago with some of the creators.
Yeah.
I think Brendan went to that thing. So
they used to do a combine with them.
I'd love to do that.
I'd love to do that, but we should literally just create a panel somewhere. Get a convention center, panel us all out across the table, and just have it where it's a live Q&A.
That'd be fun.
That'd be good.
Yeah. Mark Sanchez asked about Phillip Rivers as OC. Just throwing darts. He says, look, if we're going to go with a former NFL quarterback who's never called plays before at the NFL level. I had always wished that Matt Hasselbeck would go into coaching. I love listening to him talk about football. I think he's so measured, and he's run certainly a similar offense. Comes from a Bill Walsh, Holmgren.
I would do Matt over Phil, because Phil comes from more spread, shotgunny type of stuff.
Yeah.
Matt's at least the West Coast backing. So if I had to pick one of the two, I'd go to the other with him. Phil could be an OC, but you just want him in a spread style system.
Icy Breezy with the $1.99. I got Seahawks 30-10. The pressure's different. All right.
I like it.
Too early for me to make a prediction.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait until later.
I got some more film to still go through on the week. I've watched a couple games. I want to check out some of the early games and a couple of their playoff games. But look, it's very, very possible that this could shift this way. This team and how they played the back half of the schedule, how connected they are, and how they haven't missed a beat. They haven't lost that step of this, right? It's just you have this like a game where you have momentum in a game. And then this happens and it upends it, and now you're stopped. You're trying to recapture it, just can't recapture. It has felt like on the back half of the schedule that momentum has just been able to constantly keep trickling along. Mm-hmm. And I just can't see it just being upended at this point. And it's not just a momentum. It's like absolutely you're playing at almost the peak of your powers type of play, it feels like at times. And I feel like that's not necessarily what New England's quite at.
So remember when we had Pete, and he kept talking about this team believes all the way through. Russell was kind of like the embodiment of that. Like, they didn't think this game was over until there was double zeros on the clock. Right. There was a small clip, I think it was in the Sound or the All Access that Seattle puts in. It's Leonard Williams sitting on the bench, and I think he's talking to either Byron Murphy or Ernest Jones, and he just said the soul of this team is different. The soul of this team is different. It doesn't matter. The soul of this team is different. We can do whatever we want. Everyone knows that and believes that. And I think that's a little bit to what you're talking about. That, Rams go down the field, the taunting penalty, Puka scores on the next play. A lot of teams, that would kind of rattle you and you'd be like, whoa, holy crap. Like, that wasn't expected. Like, we weren't supposed to go bang, bang. We just had a fourth and, turnover, and we had the ball and we lost it. And then sometimes teams then come out and press. What did Seattle do? Okay, cool. We'll just kind of go back down the field and score a touchdown and go from there.
And they're really clunker-proof. They really only had one this year. The Colts game is really the only one that I would classify as just a day that from kickoff to whistle, they just didn't have it. And we would see 3 or 4 of those a year from Pete Carroll coach teams. They still found a way to win, but it almost just feels like they can just beat you in so many different ways. And they've shown on both sides of the ball to be so good at making adjustments within games when things aren't. The Tennessee game started off real wonky. The Carolina game on week 15 or whatever that was kind of start up. The Atlanta game in the first half didn't look great at moments, and then they make the adjustments and they run away. But we just don't see the no-shows.
I think you speaking of the wonky, the fact you got to pick a game out in the Colts that you call wonky, and I'm not knocking you for it. It's valid, but that's a game where 6, 7 scoring drives, and your defense holds them to 16 points on the day.
Sure.
So it's even in looking at the clunky games of this team, it's like you got to kind of squint a little bit to get there in the way you would have on prior years, where they would have just been flat bad games, like the Niner game at home last year, the Lions game on the road. Those are clunkers. I mean, those are grade A clunkers, and they've just been able to avoid it at every single turn, no matter what. Even with those turnovers, we get down 3-0. I think it was the Titans game we lost. Like, you blew out all those teams when it all came and said, and you keep coming down to the one thing this offense does over and over, at least this team does in the general period we've seen over and over again, 40, 30-point halves. Something like 3 or 4 24-point halves or more as well in addition to that. I mean, they're hyper explosive from a point standpoint, which always has them in every single game no matter what.
Even that Colts game, I felt like the defense would just, after that first touchdown drive, I just felt like they weren't going to score again. It was just a matter of when we could get the field goal we needed at the end. I felt like it was going to happen the whole time.
And we just kept getting field goals. We just weren't punching it in. So we kept driving, field goals, and that's different from you put 18 points up, you grab 2 quick touchdowns, and then you don't do anything the rest of the day.
And I think we've seen this team grow since that week, too. I think if this team went back and played that team that week, I think they'd blow them out.
I agree.
Randy chipping in again. Appreciate it. Thank you, buddy. We interviewed a guy from Detroit before hiring Kubiak, offensive line guy. Where did he end up? Anyone off the Ben Johnson tree? I assume the Bears offensive coordinator doesn't call plays. That was Hank Fraley. He stayed with the Lions.
He did.
But didn't get promoted. He just stayed as an assistant offensive line coach, right? He's not the not the main offensive. Tanner Engstrand was the other guy from Detroit. He went to New York. He was the offensive coordinator. Something weird just happened there, and he just got let go by the Jets. He was just hired today somewhere.
Atlanta
To go with Stefanski. So they looked into that. There was some thought that maybe they would. I think that one of the prevailing theories during the search was they would try to hire. It was reported at one point they were looking at like a co-OC type situation where maybe they'd bring in Fraley and Udinski together as a pairing, and Fraley could run the run game, Udinski the pass game, whatever. They ultimately ended up settling on Kubiak, so it didn't happen. But
yeah, they've all settled out. Randall a little bit, and Ingerstrand was the other guy we looked at that time, and he's.
And the other thing is they don't run the same scheme as Kubiak. They're a little bit more inside zone and power than they are outside zone to what we like to run here. So again, your offensive line. Sundell's not really a power gap kind of center. He's more of a zone center because he's really good at getting to the next level. But this is where, it may lean into Bradford, but Gray Zabel isn't really, again, I think he's a really good player, but he's such a good scheme fit to what we're doing. Same with our tackles. You're not asking Abe Lucas to be a power blocking tackle. So this is where you got to start looking at that tree of like, guys that, especially with what Mike wants to do on offense, which he is not a, hey, we're going to go and do the Ryan Grubb and air it all out and go air raid. We're going to run the ball. We're going to control the clock. We're going to control the tempo and dictate the terms to the other team on how they're going to have to play us. You got to make sure your alignment of what you're doing in the run game is really there. And that's where I think if it's not Arthur Smith and they're going to go internally, Justin Outen makes the most sense because he knows this scheme and would keep this scheme.
Peter again, Seahawks content creators Radio Row for the parade. What's the temperature going to be like, though? Because my boy Brandon
I'm a brave it. I've been dying this week, folks. It's been sub-zero temperature.
I remember the last Super Bowl parade was cold. It was like was here today. It was really sunny. It was a gorgeous day, but man, it was cold.
When I pulled back into the house tonight, it was a balmy 27 degrees outside.
Yeah,
it's been freezing here, folks. Yours truly has not done well coming out of Southern Cal into this weather.
Randy McDaniel again with the $4.99 dono. Randy appreciates you guys being genuine and authentic. Other hot content folks like to flex by having C-list experts on. No names, but we know who. Hey, don't overlook the value of a good C-list expert. I interview them on my show all the time. They can give you some good stuff. But thanks again, Randy.
You're very kind, Randy. Yeah. Thank you for that, Randy. Man.
Again, we all respect the other creators a lot. So anytime you want to put us, among them or above them, it means a lot.
It's good company.
Mark Sanchez, another question about the Senior Bowl today. What did you guys think of Pavia? Just asking. So I know you've said not an NFL quarterback. He just, I think the first thing on Tuesday that happened, or on Monday, that caught everybody by surprise is when he actually measured. He's legit 5'9". Yeah. These short quarterbacks that we've had over the last 10, 15 years, Russ, obviously, and Kyler Murray, it's like when they go to get measured, it's like, okay, they broke they're 5'10 and a half. They're basically 5'11". We can live with that. Bryce Young, 5'9's a different. 5'9's me.
Yeah, I heard something interesting from someone I've talked to who has a family member on the Vanderbilt team. Apparently, Pavia is a bit of a dipshit.
What about his public persona would make you think that he's not? He's a very.
Isn't there a scouting technical term for that, by the way? Is that your scouting technical term?
That's my scouting technical term right there.
What's your little symbol that you put next to the nameplate on the board to show what's the dipshit?
Read between the lines. But no, so what I heard is like even his teammates in that locker room did not like him, which is never a good sign.
He's different. He's different.
He kind of comes across as spoiled because he's got two very well off. His parents are very well off. They're both lawyers and such. It's just
he seems like an entourage type guy too.
Yeah, big chain. Well, think about what he did after the whole Mendoza Heisman thing, right? Yeah. Where he's doing that like. Dude, no NFL team wants to touch you if that's the way you're going to act. If you lose a game, it's Johnny Manziel 2.0.
Plus, he just doesn't look. If you're going to overcome being 5'10", like Kyler Murray, like Russell Wilson, like you got to have a big arm.
Get a command and leadership and all those
mobility.
things.
And mobility, yeah, and he's got
functional mobility, but not mobility.
Yeah.
He's also got stump mobility.
He made a play on the run today, threw a nice ball on the first drive, rolling out. But yeah, he's not a guy that's going to hurt you like Kyler did when he was younger.
You look at what he survived on in this game. It was roll out, put a defender in conflict, and flick it sidearm out to the sideline 3 yards, let the guy scurry up the sideline. He didn't make any big time throws where you're like, holy crap, he hit the 15-yard in cut right on the money, put it on the guys. Like he doesn't.
You know who the second best quarterback was here all this week, and Daniel Jeremiah confirmed this. Agreed with me. I think we talked about this week. You guys might have different thoughts on who QB2 was, but Cole Payton, the kid out of North Dakota State, who had to wait his turn till he was a senior to start. He's a lefty. Thought he showed good arm strength, really quick release. He was accurate throughout the week. He's got some mobility to him. He's got good size. I thought he was the second best guy here.
I liked, if I had to pick a second best guy here, and I don't know if Brandon might differ from me, is the kid out of Illinois. Altmaier, I thought
he was really good on Wednesday. He was the best guy on the field on Wednesday.
Yeah, but the thing I liked about him is, to Nussmeier's point, understands pocket movement. He's not going to be flashy. He's going to be a solid backup quarterback in the NFL, which is never what you want to hear when a guy's going into a draft. But he can functionally move an offense. You can see him go through progressions, where a lot of these other guys, it's like, I'm so used to an RPO and catching the ball at a shotgun. Illinois, again, he played under center. I watched him live versus Washington. He makes big-time throws. He can make the 15-yard in throw. Smart guy. I think he set a bunch of records this year at Illinois for passing.
Yeah.
He's
not the biggest guy.
No.
Kind of reminds me of like a Nick Mullins, sort of the way he's built. And just like, he can bounce around the league as a backup. And yeah.
That's what you're getting with this quarterback class as a backup.
I think about last year's class, and we had Jackson Dart here, we had Riley Leonard, we had Tyler Shuck, we had Jalen Milroe. Like, that's a good group. There are a couple other guys I'm kind of blanking out on right now, too.
Seth Hannigan.
The only guy out of this group that I think would have belonged in that group and fit in is Nussmeier. You don't put Peyton in that group. No. Like, he doesn't make that. I think all those guys, the only guy from this year's team that would have been in the game last year, I think, is maybe Nussmeier.
Yeah, none of these guys are my number two. So
no.
I'm
not in the draft. I mean here.
I know this last week. I wouldn't touch any of these guys with a 10-foot pole. So it's Garrett Nussmeier and nobody in that I got. I watched bad quarterback play for the last 3 days. I just watched a bad game, and the wind played a part in it. We can find some select throws from these guys they make. That's great. But I saw bad mechanics, bad lower half, inability to go through reads, like Bryce just said, a lot of RPO background in what you're doing. It's just hard to gravitate towards the good of that, especially to the names you just mentioned, when that was the stock what you had last year.
Yeah,
that is as big a drop off as you get.
You think about last year, we weren't talking about it in great revere too, right? Like, it wasn't like we were like,
no, Milroe was bad here last year.
Because we kept going to the year before and going to Michael Penix and Bo Nix and all those guys, right? Like, that class that was there. Like, again, I even look and go, okay, where does Mendoza fit in last year's draft class? He's going to go number one. Where would you put Mendoza in last year's draft class? Would he be a first-round pick in last year's group? Would you take Jackson Dart over Mendoza?
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, because of the mobility and the
There's a bunch of things there with Dart to
I think he goes before Shuck.
He might have a stronger arm than Mendoza too.
Yeah.
I think he goes before Shuck. So I think he's QB3 last year.
I'd say he's QB4.
I think he goes behind Shuck. Because Shuck has better mobility and a better arm, more live arm to make every NFL throw.
Played in a less RPO, like he left an RPO-based offense in Oregon and went to more progressive reads. That's why you saw Shuck, when he got his opportunity this year and started to play, really started to understand Kellen Moore's offense and how to get the ball out, get it to the right guys in terms of anticipation, because he played so well down the back half of that stretch for that New Orleans team. It was like, oh, actually, they may have something there with Tyler Shuck for a bit.
Maybe. Yeah, I know the injury thing was a concern. Tyler Shuck didn't go 39 touchdowns, no interceptions in the red zone, I'll tell you that, and Mendoza did. Like, there's some things to like about Mendoza.
I don't hate him. He's a third-round grade to me, because I think that it's average arm strength and below average to average mobility when it's all said and done. And at the NFL level, whatever you're bringing in tangible-wise, grit, moxie, all the words we can apply to Mendoza, that's great. But the rubber meets the road. I need you to make every throw in the book you can't. Or can you run away from pass rush? You can't. That's going to limit your upside.
And then again, look at situations where RPOs are taken away from him. Put him in third and long when he can't run an RPO, where you're putting a constant conflict defender that way. And you got to either layer it vertically or you got to read it horizontally. I don't see a guy that can consistently do that as a number one overall pick at the NFL level. This is where I agree with Brandon on the third-round grade. Like, I get all the hype. The guy won the Heisman. But we're talking about, look at the quarterbacks around him in college football even this year. It wasn't a great group of starting quarterbacks in college football. Like, Cade Klubnik was a guy that had so much hype. He's average. He wasn't even here, right? Like, Ty Simpson, he had a great stretch there. Ty Simpson wasn't here, and I don't even think Ty Simpson's better than Mendoza in a lot of ways, right? There's things about him, sure, but you're not talking about taking, like, again, if you take Mendoza and put him 2 years ago, what player he was this year that won the Heisman, is he beating out your Heisman candidate from that year and quarterbacks in that? Is he better than a Michael Penix? Is he better than a Bo Nix? Is he better than, there's one guy I could say maybe he's comparable to in that class, which was J.J. McCarthy, who we all realized was vastly overdrafted. But a lot of those other names that went in that quarterback class, you're not putting Mendoza anywhere in that top 4 category. He is a day 2 pick at best, and probably in that class, he's mid-third and lower.
Yep.
Yeah, I do find it striking because I'm sitting here listening to you guys break it down, and I'm thinking, but he played so well in such meaningful games against the best teams in the country.
So did Charlie Ward.
But then I was going to say, but so did Will Howard. And Will Howard was so impressive last year in the college football playoff, making NFL throws.
Yep.
And he went in the 6th round. So I guess 100%. To your point. Yeah.
And it's not, we can grab these two. If we really battered our brains, we would come up with a variety of other examples. Even Cam Ward last year, in a typical draft, wouldn't have been the number 1 overall quarterback at the top of the draft. And so this is a tendency of NFL teams to do this. It's a high tendency of NFL teams.
You got to have them, and they're hard to find.
Yeah. And it's a roll of the dice, and it's like a lotto ticket. And sometimes the lotto ticket is one. We did this with Jalen Milroe a little bit. You're looking at the upside, and you go, well, if it can just develop, and I can just do this, and but is the chance of it high? No, but if it does, boy, we are in the money, baby.
Yep. Tony Bag of Donuts checking in again with a $5 bag of donuts. Coldest I've ever been is at the Hawks parade at the stadium. I was at the stadium too. I decided to go in the stadium instead of out on the street. So we got the big speech from Pete saying we're going to be back and do it again next year. He was almost right.
It is closed.
Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, I'm going thermal underwear. I'll be going out. I've been joking. I'll be the kid from Christmas Story.
No, I'll get one of those plug-in coats, man. Yeah.
Go Hawks!
I could have used one of those plug-in coats this week, that's for sure. Mark Sanchez checking in again with the donation says the Vikes GM got fired because of Sam Darnold. Thoughts? It wasn't all because of Sam Darnold, but it was but the quarterback situation as a whole seems like it was probably his undoing. There may have been some disconnect about J.J. McCarthy and their evaluation of him. And then it sounds like maybe Kevin O'Connell wanted to keep Sam Darnold a little bit more than the organization was willing to.
I think so too. The owners they get their butt chapped when you go out there and you spend a lot of money and then you don't even make the playoffs. I mean, the 49ers just ran down this road this last year with the $100 million that they ate. Why did they do that? Because that owner came back to him and you're burying all the cap space out here. You're borrowing from tomorrow over and over again, and you can't even give me a Super Bowl. Yeah. And the Minnesota Vikings went out there and were more active than anybody, maybe in free agency. They paid, and then that was in addition to giving contracts out to their own guys. Spent the most money, and yet you come back around and you're like, well, you spent all that money and then you were wrong about the quarterback. That's kind of enough. It was a 1-2 punch to get your butt fired.
Yeah, that was probably the last straw. They thought they were close enough to winning that they could win, that they had enough confidence in their head coach to get the most out of J.J. McCarthy that they went and spent $80 million on Will Fries, and they spent on Jonathan Grenard, and they spent on Byron Murphy and
Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and just you put that much money. I think you got to bring the goods on it. And that quarterback situation. Look at the future too. They're dead money now. They're under where their cap situation is by what he did with this.
Yeah,
has put them completely underwater.
It was all or nothing. Yeah, so they're in a tough spot. Hey, 2.5 hours goes by quick, doesn't it?
Hell yeah.
Really appreciate everybody being here. I think we need to wrap up. We got to clean the place up and pack and head out in the morning. We just want to say thanks for all the follows, all the supports, all the likes, all the donations this week. This was an interesting week for us. We kind of had to pivot our focus and pivot our plan once we got down here and realized that, dang, we came down here for draft stuff, and it's not about draft stuff. The Seahawks went and threw a wrench in our plans for this week, but we had a lot of fun doing it, and we learned a lot about this draft class, and we, it was cool to be down here, sort of at what is the epicenter of the NFL this week until Tuesday probably, when everybody will be in Santa Clara. So no, it was a good time.
Yeah, it was great being down here with these guys. Had an awesome time, and definitely probably get back down in the future. Maybe we got a little bit more of a thicker draft.
Yeah, no kidding.
If you haven't already, be sure to give subs to all the channels here: the Hawks Eye, the Hawks Nest, and Seahawks Forever. If you don't already, and I'm sure we all have big plans this week. We're all heading back tomorrow, and then we hit the ground running on Monday, and we'll talk some Super Bowl.
We got Syndicate next Thursday.
We're going to do it Thursday. That's the plan. Yeah, big one. Yeah. Be sure to join us for that. Look at all of our Twitter feeds and follow us if If you don't ever want to miss content, just hit that bell. That's how you always know.
It's free.
But we'll do Syndicate next Thursday, do the full proper preview. And, oh, by the way, Mookie Alexander, if he's able to join us, he's going to be there. He's going to be in Santa Clara at the Super Bowl. Lucky son of... Yeah. Anyway, join us then. Join us every day this week. Seahawks in the Super Bowl. Enjoy this, you guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the support, all the views. Any last thoughts? Should we just try to finish with a big Go Hawks?
Hey, we might be able to do it in sync this time.
Wait, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to go
let's
to
do it
three.
like a hand signal.
I'm going to go to 3 and on 3, okay? So as I hit that third finger, I want to hear Go Hawks. No latency from you boys now. Come on here. Here we go.
Go Hawks!